You are now entering Maximum Driftcast, the only drifting podcast hosted by a Spanish soccer mom, a 30-year-old silver-haired fox going on 60, and finally, a 200-pound bowl of spaghetti with chimichanga arms.
The champions, we are the champions.
Hola.
Que pasones, Paco Way.
¿Qué onda? Hey, you look like a hot dog.
So we're finally doing a full Spanish-speaking episode.
Sí.
We have Paco. I should be doing this. We have Me llamo Samuel Nalvin.
Hey, hello.
¿Qué onda?
And we have Me llamo O'Brien. Big balls. Big Wes O'Brien. So anyhow, and plus I have a Wesso on my head if you guys can't see. Thanks for tuning in. Another episode of Maximum Driftcast.
With a full cast together.
With a full, oh my God, this is probably the largest cast we've ever had.
Yeah, it's we have a full house.
Yep.
Which, by the way, is one of Corey's favorite show.
We have Joey Gladstone.
Yeah.
We have Uncle Jesse.
Uncle Jesse.
Bob Saget.
Bob what?
Bob Saget.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
The Olsen brothers.
Sam Nalvin.
Yep.
Weren't you part of Full House, Sam?
Yeah, I was the one that got hit by the bus.
I guess I missed that episode.
Oh, I didn't. I'd
Yeah.
watch that over and over and over again. Poor Samuel.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. It's lurking in the darkness in his dark little cave.
It is little, but it is. I guess I'd say it's tastefully lit, but I guess that's up to the eye of
Interpretation.
That's what happens when you
Yeah.
have too many beers. You get tastefully lit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still remember that dark corner back there where I was.
Oh, that's where Corey farted you awake.
I was startled up to.
I usually fart Paco asleep, but this time I farted him awake.
I'm about to throw away that couch unless you guys need it. Maybe that should go in the studio there as a piece of drifting history.
Oh, there you
never
just put it right
realized.
here in the back.
We could
Yeah.
just give me the love seat, and that's all I need. Or the footstool.
Yeah.
I'll take either that because that's what was the most memorable for me staying at your house. Sam.
That was the part that you
Yep.
soiled.
Yep, that's what I soiled. That and my undies. But,
Yeah, I just soiled my soul as well. By the way, for people who's not watching, Corey's wearing a very interesting piece of how do you say that? Hatwear.
Yep, it's
That's right. Hatwear.
It's a new hatwear. Is that what you're wearing right now as well? Is a piece of hatwear?
It's a piece of hatwear.
That's nice.
Headwear. It's a very nice. What would you call that, Corey?
I call this my dog between two buns.
Nice.
It's a new piece. It's a Gucci Mane hat.
Gucci Mane hat. Yeah.
So
yeah.
super exotic. Big Balls actually got this for me.
He found it at the Halloween store.
Thanks, Brian.
And I had given the encouragement to get it. I was like, yeah, just bring it on.
Do you know what I want? I want to get a fence set up right there, Paco, right at the tip of the studio, so he looks like the neighbor from Home Improvement.
From Improvement. What was his name?
What's I don't? Yeah.
That was my best impression of the guy at the end of the intro. I'm not very good at it.
Once again, my favorite video. My favorite.
There you go.
My
That sounded like
favorite,
Yoda.
Thanks, Brian.
my favorite video on YouTube is the 10 minutes of Tim Allen grunts, and you could just pull that.
Before we get rudely interrupted by our guest, do we have any procedural things to get a hold of? here?
Yeah, obviously this week has been a big week in drifting. But before we do go into that, we are coming up on the final round of Irwindale, and Formula Drift is going to be doing something new that they really haven't done too much before, but they're doing a eBay charity raffle. And what they will be doing is near Irwindale, they're going to start posting images, and then they're also going to be supplying their eBay link with items from all types of drivers, either if it's racing suit, shoes, body panels. We're giving away some stuff, Sam. But basically what's going to happen is they're going to post...
Pretty much, we're going to give away everything that's in your backpack again, right? I don't know if you remember that last year when I tried to raffle off your entire contents of your backpack.
Yeah, and that's when I had like baby powder, foot lotion.
There was some of my... Wait.
By the way, I still have that.
Yeah, oh, nice.
I still have that supply, so I'll bring that to Irwindale. But what's going to be happening, guys, is actually it's facilitated by Formula Drift, but the women of Formula Drift, which is all the wives and Cassidy and a couple other people, are facilitating this raffle, which, once again, it's going to be items and products and parts off drivers' cars that are going to be raffled off on eBay, and all the proceeds go to a charity that they came up with, and it looks like they're using the charities using charitynavigator.org. So, for example, Maximum Driftcast, we're going to be giving away, raffling off for charity our
AM super high performance helmet, custom made helmet for
this airbrushed AM helmet that was gifted to us from the guys. We're going to have the Driftcast team sign it, as well as all the AM drivers. And this will be raffled off so you guys can have a piece of, would this be considered history yet?
I would say it's historical.
It's historical.
It's about to make history, that's for sure.
It's a petrified helmet. I'm also a part of that raffle. I'm going to be putting in some racing shoes and racing gloves.
And you can win a date with Corey.
Yeah, that's already $6 flat, Sam. We don't raffle that up.
Yeah, it's just $6 flat. First taker comes all, gets all.
Whoever gets it takes it. So anyways, guys, really pay attention to Formula Drift recently. We'll also share the links. But that is a really cool cause. All the proceeds are going to be going to the victims of the hurricane and all the catastrophes that have unfortunately been unfolding here in the United States. So it goes to a really good cause. Let's keep everybody in the loop because we're in this together.
Yeah.
And if there's something we can do as a team, let's freaking do it. So pay attention to that raffle. We'll post the links and all the information here soon. And then also, obviously, there was a
very horrible incident that happened last night in Vegas. And we just want to motivate you guys. If you guys want to help, just go and donate blood. Like a lot of our friends from Vegas Drift and a lot of our drifter friends who were just here last weekend, 2 weekends ago. I mean, they all, it's pretty close from them. And they also been talking about this. So if you want to help, do something about it, go donate blood. We really appreciate that.
Any Red Cross will take that donations over to where it's needed. So we got messaged by a few people from Vegas. Once again, this all goes back just to the community as a whole. Please donate. Please help. Thank you, guys. And now that's out of the way.
Welcome to Maximum Drift.
The only drift podcast where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many people do we have on the show today?
Right now we're gonna have
enough to party.
6.
This is
it's gonna be a 6-pack.
It's a sausage party. It's all dudes, nothing but dudes.
Nothing but dudes. You have an extra sausage on your head.
Yep, and I'm wearing an extra one on my head. But anyways, guys, there was a lot going on this weekend for the drifting community. The first FIA drifting organized event.
2 rounds.
2 rounds.
Not one. 2 rounds in one weekend.
At Odaiba. And a lot of people have mixed feelings about that.
There's a lot of comments going on.
A lot of comments on both sides of the spectrum. And
I think it was fine and not even worth talking about. It was just a good time, and we don't need to bring it up.
Where did you finish, Sam?
I didn't finish, Corey. I never do. That's the trick. Is
just
you gotta keep them. You gotta keep them wanting.
Oh my God! But anyways, we brought in 2 very special guests. And
Some would say the most special.
They are very special.
Yeah.
And do you know what? They're in 2
specialists.
other countries that are not in the United States. One is from Canada, weighing in at 243 pounds.
Should we pretend like they had to call in? Like I know that we're not really having them break into the call as much anymore since we do live shows on Skype. But Corey, let's just do like a fake phone call noise, Corey, if you don't mind.
All right.
Corey's cell phone is on vibration.
Who called in there? Who just used their voice?
Oh, look at this guy. It's Ryan
All
Spaghetti
from Canada.
Man. Wow.
Do you guys have lights in Canada?
Yeah, but only on our faces. The background's always dark.
Oh, interesting.
It's a very sexy look.
And who wants to give the intro to the next guest?
Let me.
We gotta do another fake phone. Let's do another.
Here comes the phone call.
Okay, phone call's coming in.
Good.
Masi
Yeah, hold on.
masi.
It's a Mexican ringer.
Masi masi.
Moshi moshi.
Oh, konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
Hello.
That's as far as I can get That's why when I talk to anybody from Japan on the phone, it lasts for about 2 seconds and they hang up on me because I can't get past just hello.
Actually, I gotta be really annoying right now. My front door just rang. I gotta deliver it.
Perfect timing.
1 second. 1 second.
Hopefully, it's an edible arrangements that we sent him. It's all cucumbers dipped in chocolate.
What?
Paco, I saw a van at the airport on my way home.
Oh my
and I
God!
thought
What
of
is
you.
that? It is a Townace.
I have no idea. It's a Nissan, but the color, everything, I thought it was pretty cool.
Look, it's got like white letter on the
White whale.
White whale letter tires. Thanks, Paco. Can we get a translation on that, Big Balls? What did that mean, what Paco just said? Let's go to our official translator. Brian, what did Paco just say?
I like the van.
Oh, okay.
That's very accurate.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian.
But anyway, Go ahead.
Oh, well, Noriyaro's busy calling us and then walking away from the mic. Lanteigne, what's up, man? Why are you calling in? Were you on at anything this last weekend, doing anything fun?
Yeah, I was in Japan. I just got home.
How long
Doing
ago?
some stuff. So the first thing I did there was FD Japan in Okuibuki, which is a ski hill. And then I stayed for the week, did some touristy stuff, and did the FIA event just this past weekend.
Woo! And we're going to get into that,
beautiful.
no doubt. And Noriyaro, you also were doing some things this last weekend.
Yeah, well, basically, I was everywhere Ryan Lanteigne was. We were at Okuibuki for Formula Drift Japan, and also all last weekend for the FIA event. I was there too in a commentary capacity. So that was a lot of fun. 2 weekends in a row doing that sort of stuff.
And of course, the main reason why I wanted to talk to you guys is to get some perspective on this FIA event, because this is a big freaking deal. We've been talking about it for years now. Honestly, since like pretty much this show started up, we have been hearing rumors about this big event going down, and it finally went down. And we've of course had lots of opinions about it on our discussion board. And Corey and Paco have expressed some things on there. I forget if you guys have posted or not, but I mean, how do we start this up, boys?
I try to be very conservative. I have mixed feelings.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be like an influence opinion on getting people's opinions.
Well,
you know?
let's start off with this. Let's talk about what our initial thoughts were going to be leading into the event. Like, I personally thought this was going to be one of the biggest drifting events in history, and I think it was going to set the bar of drifting around the world, right? Because this is one of the largest motorsports organizations. You would expect, once again, one of the greatest spectacles in motorsports, especially for drifting. FIA puts on obviously a phenomenal event, or is a part of like Formula One and a couple other organizations that is top tier. So I expected that. So that's what I was expecting coming into this. Paco, what were you expecting?
There's definitely high expectations for it.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely wanted to see it. Obviously, like, this is the time where we actually kind of like invert the things, where we start watching a show kind of late, because it started like at 6 for us and it ended like at 1 a.m.
Right.
Honestly, I mean, I gotta say, I was a little bit tired, so I was having a hard time keeping up, especially with the top 4. It took too long. But I was definitely expecting to see like a D1 that was like 3 times bigger than D1, you know?
Right, just from the way it was organized to, obviously the track layout was very limited, but just the overall spectacle, even looking at the cameras and the live stream and the quality of all that.
And again, this is my opinion based on what I could see through live stream. You know, I wasn't there. Obviously, the first day it seemed like the grandstands were a little bit empty, but the next day it seems like it was completely packed. So unfortunately I only had a chance to see the round 1, and I had a hard time understanding the telemetry, I guess, for the automatic system.
The DOS system.
Hey, yeah. I have a quick opinion. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. It was confusing as hell. I didn't understand the judging. I didn't understand the competition format. I didn't know what was happening.
Well, fortunately, we have a couple experts on the matter.
Yeah, guys. So what do you guys think? So first of all, should we get disclaimers aside? You guys were kind of involved in the event itself, but not entirely.
That's true.
So I mean, how would you clarify that statement? What were your roles at this event?
So I was a judge at this event. I was a part of the working group that we were had been organized previously. The last meeting that I attended was in December or January of this year, I guess it was. And from that point on, everything kind of got put in D1's hands as after they won the bid, and then came in as a judge for this round. That's basically it for me.
So you were the robot judge that everyone hates?
It was one of 3.
All right, but so I mean that jokingly, of course, but I thought that it was all judged by robots. There was human judges as well.
And there was Gundam judges.
So that's something we could get into if you'd like. Probably not right away.
Let's get to that
his side. But yeah, that was a bit of a point of contention for myself and some people within FIA as well. So anyway, we'll get into that if you'd like.
Yeah, let's talk about that after Alexi says hello. So Alexi, what's up? What were you doing over there?
All right, so hello. So yeah, I was there in a capacity like I usually am for D1 Grand Prix because they were both run by the same company, Sunpros. And my job was to sit behind actually this microphone up on a stage right next to turn one, which is a bit unusual. Usually they've got us over in a tent, but we were literally right in front of it. So I didn't even have to look at the little replay monitor. It was like right in front of my face, which is kind of cool. Doing the English version of the live stream, which went out to Facebook, which is how most of you guys probably watched it. Yep. And essentially whatever was happening, I would just describe what was going on. But on top of that, it was my job to try and actually explain how the event was being judged and, all that sort of stuff and relay that through, which I did the best job I could. But over the weekend, I think with that live stream, we had, I probably shouldn't say the numbers because they don't publish that, but we had a lot of people watching either the whole, parts of it. Yeah. Coming in, dropping out, stuff like that, like impressions is what they call it. Yeah. So the problem with that was every time someone would come in, I would have already explained what was going on. So if you weren't there the whole time, I would have had to keep explaining, like literally every battle. Right. Okay, here's what's happening. So for people to understand, because people get in like, I don't know what's going on, what's happening, and that's totally understandable because it's not a system that I guess the majority of people in the English-speaking drift community are used to seeing or understanding. So that was essentially my job. So so disclosure time, I do that for D1 Grand Prix, for the FIA thing, and also for Formula Drift Japan. So I sort of do it for all the Japanese series live streams as well. But this time I was just by myself. Usually I'm with Ryan Sage, which is a bit more fun. We got sort of two people to sort of banter off. But this time all I had was the Facebook chat to keep me company, which was
always fun.
Yeah, that was, I mean, you think after I've been on YouTube for a while now, I've got like 370,000 subscribers. You think I'd have a thick skin about comments by now, but it just gets a bit tiring sometimes. And I don't know. Like yeah, sometimes people are like, are you even trying to understand what's going on? I'm doing my best, but look, there was the stream wasn't perfect. I mean, the negative points of the stream, I'll say up front was, first of all, I think whoever the cameraman were that weekend had they didn't have a very good briefing on how to shoot the event. Okay, all right. So
we all agree with that, I think.
Yeah, and it got to after about halfway through the first day, I kept saying to the director, like I actually got up and went into the tent behind me and said, look, can you tell the cameraman to pull out so we can see the whole car? And I believe they started doing that towards the end of the second day because I went and talked to the producer. Another bad thing about the stream was that I didn't have a direct line to the editor, like the online editor in the booth. So we had to communicate with hand signals. So when I wanted to cut, when I wanted the camera to cut to me, I'd do this, like I put my fingers up in front of the camera, like cut, and he'd cut to me. And sometimes it'd cut to me, and my fingers would still be like in front of the camera. Yeah. And when I wanted to cut back to the main shot, I'd put my hand up like this as if to say, okay, bye, let's see you later. And I'd be stuck there with my hand up like this, like an idiot going, when is it going to cut back? And eventually, because he wouldn't be paying attention all the time because they had they had the Facebook stream in English, the stream in Japanese, also the Nico Nico Doga stream, which is like the Japanese Facebook, Japanese YouTube stream as well, and that was their main priority because that's the company they work for. So it wasn't great. Also, it was just me for 7 hours,
which is rough.
Like a 30-minute break, and it gets to the point where you're like, did I already say this, or I've said it 50 times? Surely they know that by now.
But that's super tough. There's a reason why I think most shows and most commentaries have at least two people because you really do need to have someone to bounce opinions off of. Even if you're just stating the sky is blue and the clouds are white and there's cars here, at least you're talking to someone and you're not just saying it into the emptiness.
That's it. That's right. Exactly right.
I was gonna say, Alexi, you probably, from our perspective, probably had one of the most difficult jobs of the whole weekend. And at the very beginning, once again, I watched from beginning to end both nights, and like you could see the bugs evolving, and then you trying to work them out. I would almost consider you the commentator, the producer, and then the translator of everything that's going on. I'm like, how does Lexi not want to jump off that stage yet into the crowd and just run away?
Yeah.
Because you had literally the most difficult job. Because once again, at this point, this is probably one of the first opportunities where you're getting a lot of new viewers purely from the FIA drawing the new audience in. So, like you were saying, I had to reiterate myself 1,000 times what drifting is. You had to reiterate yourself 1,000,000 times. Once again, is that something that could have been fixed leading up to that, as far as the FIA or whoever put on the event putting out criteria prior? Like, that's the thing. That's why I felt like it was super rushed, that there wasn't enough information for the new people to get involved with, and then you had too much on your plate going into it.
Oh, look, I would never complain about the job I had, because it's my job to deal with that. But look, it's all about expectations like people have for things. I mean, look, let's look at the two ends of things, right? You look at, for example, Formula One, right? Whoever goes across the line first, he's the winner. Second guy, second, third. Like, easy. Like, whatever happens in the middle, whatever. But it's got an easy result to understand, right? On the other hand, you watch something like, for example, like a monster truck derby, whatever, where they're doing the backflips and wheelies and stuff like that. Like, you just look at it and go, that's cool. I don't really care who wins, because I just got entertained.
Right.
And the drifting is sort of halfway between that. Is, it's a very serious, technical, difficult motorsport. Like, we all know that. But on the other hand, too, it's exciting. It's like a constantly rolling highlight reel of action, happening literally every battle. So, people come into it with the hugest broad range of expectations, and if what they're seeing and what the result is doesn't match up with what's in their head, I think that's when the problems arise. Yeah.
I mean, can we take one step backwards and maybe say that, like, as a first major point of this conversation, that if we're trying to guide it in a streamlined way, I think is that, one, you have to, of course, forgive the bugs of a new event, because it's the first time a lot of these people have done anything. Granted, of course, like you said, it is put on by the D1 guys, essentially. But I think the first point that I think resonates with a lot of the people that at least were on our discussion board, and it sounds like a lot of us in this conversation share. What the hell? I just heard my voice back at me.
Oh, that's funny. So,
no, sorry, I got lost of train of thought there, because I started hearing my voice back at me, which is not ideal. Anyways, what I was saying was that this is supposed to be the future of drifting, right? This is kind of perceived as this is the next big step into what the future will hold, and it felt somewhat disorganized, somewhat confusing, and maybe was disappointing for a lot of people based off of the fact that they didn't know what's happening, and it didn't seem like this shiny, new, polished thing. It seemed pretty off the cuff and not nearly as developed as the existing series we have.
Hello?
Who's that directed towards?
That's either one of you. Well, I mean, chime in. All right,
let's hear from Lanteigne. We haven't heard from him.
Yeah, Ryan. Let's see what from Ryan.
Yes, that is, I think, the prevailing feeling after the event. Even during the event, we kind of felt that way as well. We as judges were actually helping develop the judging system on the spot, because their DOS system, which they were calling EDS, had never been used with 3 judges before. So because of that, even though it's a computer that can handle complex algorithms and mathematical equations and everything, it wasn't set up to receive scores from 3 tablets at the same time. And when some crazy stuff happened on the track, we were plus and minusing some drivers maybe up to 4 points in either direction at the same time. So from 3 tablets at the same time, that led to a lot of the slowdowns that we saw. We had our scores in and we were sitting there waiting, and they'd say, oh, hang on, there's a technical thing that we're working through. We're going to get this fixed for tomorrow. We're going to have it fixed for later today. But it kind of never really got fixed because it was challenging their system so much. Tie that in with maybe some other little organizational issues on D1's part that we expected to be handled. I really had a high expectation level for this event, just because of the fact that D1's been running drift events for probably longer than many of the other series out there. Certainly longer than FD, longer than most of the big series that are out there in the world. So I thought, oh, they're going to have everything handled. Everything's going to be covered. They're going to have all their bases covered. But in the end, it seemed like some things were left to chance or just weren't thought about at all. So we were kind of surprised.
Well, that's a good point, because you think about this. The D1 or Sun Pro's been organizing these drift events for I don't know how many years, obviously quite some time, longer than Formula Drift. If you, Ryan, were handed a an opportunity to host an FIA Drift event, wouldn't you kind of go above and beyond? And if this is D1 or some pros gone above and beyond to host an FIA event, I find that just astonishing that, hey, you have the biggest opportunity in the motorsports as a whole, run with it, do the best you can, and this is what we got. That's what was so frustrating, is they had this great opportunity to showcase the world what drifting is about, and this is the final product.
Yeah, you can probably get a little more insight from Alexi on this. I've only been to one D1 event, and it was actually at Odaiba in 2014. So my experience with D1 is exactly what I saw at that event, as it was the exact same location, the same track. Odaiba is a big fan draw, not necessarily a drift fan draw, but participants, let's say, people that were there because it's in the center of Tokyo. You've got people that are over there looking at Gundam at the mall or whatever they might be, and all of a sudden they hear cars and they're like, oh, let's go over and see what's going on over there. I'm not sure what other D1 events are like. I was not at the driver meeting. I wasn't really behind the scenes of that Odaiba Drift event that I went to in 2014 either. What I have been explained is that the level of preparation, the level of, let's say, what's the word, like quality level of the driver's meeting area, the backstage kind of behind the scenes stuff, that was right about the same level as a D1 event. Now, Alexi, you'd have to kind of get more into detail on that if that's what you've seen from other D1 events as well. But from what I've seen, the other events that I've been to around the world, there are much higher level events out there in terms of back kind of preparation and stuff behind the scenes that D1 maybe this is normal for them, and they thought this will fly at an FIA level as well. Take it away, Alexi.
Okay, well, all right. So yeah, big thing to cover there, but I'll try and keep it as linear as possible. So yeah, so D1 Grand Prix, obviously so let's just keep it simple, just in case we have a lot of new people joining us today because this is a new subject they're interested in. So D1's been running for a long time now. Forget, it's like more than 10 years, way more than that, like a long time. I can't remember now, but it's always been human judges. It started off with Keiichi Tsuchiya, the Drift King, in charge of basically it was just him essentially, like, okay, this guy wins, this guy loses, and for qualifying it was essentially one person, and it kind of evolved from there up to two people. It was him and like another driver, Arito, who was also a drift driver and experienced GT racer, and it kind of evolved from there. And eventually when Keiichi Tsuchiya left and they had to get other people judging, they would get other drivers who were like experienced D1 drivers to, so it'd be like for example, getting Forrest Wang or like other guys who maybe weren't driving that season to be judges, because you can take their word for, they know what's good drifting and they get the results. So what they've done recently for the past few seasons is they use this system called DOS. So once again, we'll explain what that is. It uses a device. It's usually called a drift box. It's made by a company in the UK, I think. It measures the car's position on the track, like, so basically where it is, the GPS location where it is, the angle at which it is relative to its forward movement, so the angle of the car. It can also measure the yaw rate, so how hard a car flicks from left to right. And it can also measure proximity from one car to another car when you have two cars running on the track at the same time. So essentially, so in theory, that sounds great, right? Because, you can just look at the two system, look at one car, look at the other car. Oh, this guy better angle, this guy better proximity, it's going to win. It's not that simple. And the problem with the system is, I think, especially for a lot of the drivers who are not used to driving under that system, is it can be extremely confusing, and especially for the fans who are even less familiar with how judging works, it can be extremely confusing. Well, I thought this guy won. Why didn't he win? And there's a number up there on the board that what I don't get it. Like, there's a lot of that, and it's understandable, of course. So one interesting point from that weekend is the people who did the best, I think, overall on that weekend, on average, were the drivers. I mean, the drivers from countries which have had a lot of experience with DOS. The Japanese drivers, of course, Daigo Saito, Yokoi, and Kawabata, always at the top end of the field. The other drivers who did well, obviously, the Russians that weekend. Now, the Russians, they have the D1 Russia event. So they're used to driving under that system, especially those two guys. They've driven with that many times. Gotcha has entered quite a few D1 Grand Prix rounds before. He's been and also at a diver, so he's had a lot of experience there. Also, the guys from Asia, like for example, the guys from Thailand, the guys from China and Chinese Taipei and all sorts of places, like they have experience with this system, and they seem to do on average better than the people who had never driven under the DOS system before. So, I mean, that's comparable to even human judging in various countries. Like you look at some countries, you look at their judging, and you go, oh, well, they're a bit more interested in this over here, whereas these guys are more interested in that. And I guess the difference between that is it's as a drift driver as well, it's easier to understand a human judge because they seem to be fairly consistent, I guess, even in their biases, if you know what I mean. Like I'm not saying judges are biased like towards a driver, but they all have their biases towards certain styles of driving. And that's just how it's always been in drifting anyway. So, you know, I mean, even the FD judges, you know, Andy, Ian, and Ryan, you can look at their scores and you can sort of see what they're looking for. So it's understandable. So the problem, I guess, with the DOS system for people coming into it is that it's just a scoreboard with numbers and that's it, and no real commentary. Because the only commentary they had on the weekend there was Nobushige Kumakubo from Team Orange, who was sitting up on the stand with these two commentators who they were just like professional commentators. They weren't really drift commentators, so they didn't really have much to say technically. And Kumakubo was doing his best to try and explain things, but because, you know, if a battle happened and then the next battle's coming up, he wouldn't really have time to explain what was going on with enough detail to make it clear. So I think that's sort of one of the things that made it a bit difficult for people to follow. Yeah. And so one final thing. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you got this graphic up. Yeah, this is how the DOS system works. The course is split into different sectors. Can you bring that?
Yeah, it's coming back. Yep.
You bring those. So here's the sectors. You have the different sectors of the track. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. As you can see, the course is a short straight. It goes quick right, long sweeping left, hairpin, and then a hairpin, and then back across the finish line. So each of those is ranked out of, it's 100 points, 30, 25, 15, 15, 15. And you can see on the right-hand side there what that section of the track is looking for. Now, this is totally consistent with how D1 is normally run. And it does make sense the majority of the time. Like you look at for example, first corner, sharp angle transfer drift. That's basically how hard the guys throw in their cars.
They're
from
top of first gear entry.
It was second. Yeah, that was a bit of a complaint. We'll get into that. But
yeah.
So they'd switch back. Also, that was the highest speed on the entry. The highest speeds we saw were roughly about 94 kilometers an hour, I think, from Yokoi and Saito and things like that. A lot of the other guys were sort of doing mid-80s. So then second is the big, long, sweeping corner. Drift angle size, stable drifting angle, average speed. So what you want is a guy holding big angle cleanly and consistently, not wobbling around all the way around there, and also the average speed they're holding. So if you look at that, it makes sense. Like it's that balance between, if you go in with too much angle, you're not going to be able to go fast. But if you go in there with shallow angle, you're going to get good average speed, but wobble, you know, if you're wobbling around, you're not going to get a good score. So it is a fairly good balance of, you know, getting a good result. And then after that, obviously 3, 4, 5, same sort of thing. Oh, sharp angle return. That's the switchback. Like they don't want to see the sort of the slow transition from left to right under power. They want people to flick it really hard. And I mean, everybody was trying to do that, really, you know. So yeah.
Before the flick, what's that blank part? Oh, nice cup, by the way.
Well, blank part.
Yeah, I've got I've got my cup. Blank section. That section there is an unjudged part of the track. So the DOS is not looking at that particular part of the track. It doesn't. So whatever happens in there isn't counted. And usually what was happening,
another driver and get away with it.
Well, not so much that. Well, no, we'll get into that. But that part of the track, usually what happened on that part of the track was that's where people were sort of setting up to throw into the hairpin there in sector 3. So it was a bit of a, like we did see one of the drivers, the Malaysian driver Muhammad, hit the wall at that part of the track and not really get affected. He did sort of straighten slightly, but he didn't really get affected because it was exactly there on that part of the track. They do this on various tracks in various ways. Like they leave an unjudged section I'm not sure exactly why, but it sort of helps. Like some people take advantage of it by knowing that they can sort of they can use the time to sort of set their car up more so that when they go into the next section, they're already at full angle coming in.
But
if that makes sense.
Doesn't that seems to take away fluidity? And I don't know if that's kind of like judged, because that's one of the things that I noticed, that a lot of the drivers who actually moved on, they had like and I guess in that part of the track they had like some major corrections, almost like, you know, straightening the tires, and they still came back and, you know, they got a bunch of points. Is that what it was?
That is one of the weak points of computerized judging, is because it's looking at imagine a drift car where you can't see its wheels, right? So you're just looking at the chassis of the car sliding around. So if the actual chassis of the car is sliding at angle, right, that's going to count as a drift to the DOS system. Whereas we can see guys, if you sort of it looks like you begin to straighten up and then reinitiate again. The DOS doesn't consider that as much of a bad thing as human judges definitely do. So that is actually sort of a little weak point. But on the other hand, some drivers use that to their advantage and slide into a corner with a lot more speed, maybe a lot of body angle, a little less wheel angle. Like Yokoi was using this to great advantage to get a lot of speed into the first corner and hold it there. So, I mean, there are ways that we've seen people sort of start to try and game the system to get points. I mean, almost like you would in a video game where you can find a weak point in the scoring system. But no one's really done it overly successfully unless they've just done a really brute force good run. Like, for example, like with Daigo, where he just goes so fast, it just maxes out the speed score. So sometimes he gets like over maximum speed. But, so just the next, go on.
Oh, sorry. But do you think, and then just like totally opinion wise, do you think like when drivers take advantage of like something that could be considered not a glitch, but like a loophole on the rule book, don't you think it kind of like goes against like the whole idea of like especially like the original Japanese drifting, like trying to stay faithful to the roots and all that, like it seems like it just separates a lot from the original drifting and all the grassroots drifting that a lot of people
or the traditional D1 style
likes
judging.
Exactly. It just suddenly goes into this more competitive strategy style of professional drifting.
Well, that also that opens up the door that there's that opportunity for fans to watch a run and not understand it, because there's that thin window there where it could be confusing, where they may see a big correction or bobble through the blank spot, but then again they get scored well. That may be making it more difficult for other new spectators to understand with that. I don't know.
And if you could also maybe tie that into the fact, I think we've gone on a very long time without even mentioning the fact that there were human judges as well, which I don't understand what this is
actually what I wanted to get into. I wanted to segue into giving Ryan a chance to give his word. Yeah. So this is the computerized. So just to answer your question, Paco, I mean, we'd all like to think that way, that we're going to keep it, gentlemen's whatever, but it's motorsport, and look, I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm saying this in an absolutely positive way. There's a lot more money in drifting now than there ever was, and that's great because more cool stuff happening, right? But along with that, we just have to accept the fact that along with that is going to come people basically they need to be on the top of the podium to keep getting that check. So honor, I guess that sort of honor thing is not going to be as much of a thing as obviously, you're going to get that. Especially when you get guys who often drive with each other and have a good history with each other, or they're friends or something like that. You're going to see a lot more of that. But I think that's just the way it is, and we have to accept that. I mean, look, if we want to have comps like that, like gentleman style comps, I mean, there's people running. Was that a cat?
Yeah, thanks, my girlfriend's dumping cats on me right now. Right. So
there are people around the world running these sorts of comps where like, okay, we're going to keep it. And this is where human judges are I guess useful, is where you can call someone out on doing something stupid, like no, you can't. No, what are you doing? Don't do that. You lose, and everybody accepts that. So I guess the problem is everybody has to accept the rules. But the problem with, like, for example, the highest level stuff like FIA, like FD, like D1, not everybody is going to everybody's just looking at their boy, and if their boy lost, the rules are bullshit, and if their boy wins, it's like everything's cool. So it's just the way it is. So we just have to push it forward as best we can. Now, as far as the human judges go, one thing that really confused people this weekend, and I think probably a lot of the American guys watching too, is what the DOS likes to see is the easiest way to explain is the camera's on me, right? If I'm just, for people who are listening audio, I'm using my hands here to describe what's going on. Just say the lead car is sliding at a 45-degree angle, right? And the car behind is sliding at a 40-degree angle with their front tire right next to the door of the car in front of them, right? Like this.
A little bit higher.
Sorry, yeah, like this, okay? So imagine it's like that. That, to the average person, that's great proximity. I know Lantaigne's going to say that's not going to actually get judged very well. But to the average person, being really close like that is a great kind of proximity. Whereas what the DOS system was actually giving really good points for was, imagine the car in front and the car behind, their rear wheels were side by side. So the cars were essentially parallel driving around the track. And this confused a lot of people because the car in the rear position would often cut the corners in order to stay parallel with the car in front. And people were going like, oh, well, the car behind is cutting the course. Why isn't he getting negative points? And what makes it even more confusing was sometimes they were, if the car chasing would cut across the entire track in order just to catch up or try and be too overly aggressive, then they get the points taken away from them. But we saw this especially with the Russian guys, especially in the battles between like Gotcha and Saragradze. Arkady, yeah. Like they were parallel to each other, and it was really exciting, great looking drifting. And those runs often got really high points. Like we saw one run where Gotcha got 10 points for his lead run, and Arkady got like 11.5 for his chase, which I've never seen that before, because they were literally door to door the entire way around. So another thing to think about too is the DOS is looking to see that the cars need to be about 1.5 car widths away from each other or closer. So if the chase car can be consistently close the whole way around, sometimes you think like, yeah, but they're not really that close. Like the chase guy was like a fair way back the whole time. Why did he win? If you compare the runs, the reason for that was usually because maybe for the car in the other way around, the chase car was really close for like one section of the track and then kind of fell back and then surged forward again and then fell back. Like that's really cool, aggressive, fun to watch drifting from the spectator's point of view. But for the DOS system, if you're consistently close, like parallel the entire way around, that's what gave you the win.
But I think you did have that view because I think one of the problem is that what we were watching, it was like extreme close up of the cars.
Yeah, that's true.
And it was very hard. It was very hard to judge because, for example, now that you're saying that, on that run, Odi versus Kawabata, from what I saw on the screen, Odi was closer from Kawabata on his chase, and then on his lead he did a great run as well, and Kawabata was way behind. I mean, at least from what we saw, and then they still give Kawabata more points. So maybe one of the parts that, at least for us, made it hard to understand is that the camera angles weren't showing us exactly what was going on. The cameras that they weren't that great that weekend. I'm trying to remember that run between Odi.
And unless I'm mistaken, this is also kind of frustrating when I was trying to watch reference material to be prepared for the show. I can't find these clips anywhere online that's official. There's like some cell phone footage and other stuff, but FIA hasn't posted any recordings of this that I can tell, at least.
Mute Facebook.
So is that have you guys found that? Is that true?
Well, I posted up on Instagram.
Brian has a couple links for some videos, but they're definitely the live video that was available yesterday and on like 2 days ago, like that video is gone. So it's not like the same.
I'm saying is that I like to watch runs and whatnot, and I literally can't unless there's some like cell phone stuff.
We'll put
that's
some
just
links.
a minor annoyance, but
yeah. Which, by the way, Ryan's still with us, right?
Yeah. So we've heard about the DOS system, Ryan. What did you do?
I want to know about the judging because I still don't know what that means.
All right. So based on what Alexi just told everybody, I might even surprise him with what I'm about to tell you guys in terms of how DOS works. I don't think anybody knows how DOS works.
That's a problem.
Yeah, I don't even think Alexi knows, and I'm not saying that to be rude. I think that they have put out a portrayal of what DOS is to the public, but it is not what the actual system functions as. Now, I had the opportunity, I would say, to be there with some FIA guys that have a little bit of pull, I guess, let's say, in terms of getting them to open up about how DOS actually works. And during one of our meetings, we had many, but during one of them, there was one of the FIA guys putting a lot of pressure on the creator of DOS, who was there in the meeting, to tell us exactly how it works. And we got so deep into how the system works that he looked kind of around the room and said, I'm not saying anymore because the system is proprietary. And there are some people in this room that might, want this information so they can kind of mimic DOS and sell it themselves, because that's ultimately their goal, is to sell this system to be used around the world. Anyway, I'll start off with qualifying, how qualifying works, how the system works. I have a little sheet here I can show you real quick. That's what our pad looks like. So at the top, I can give -1 to 4 for the spins if they occur on course, but I can only put a -4 if they spin in the blank area.
Oh.
Anywhere else that a spin occurs on track, I don't touch anything on the top. And that goes for a straightening, a spin, a major error, or anything like that. And then for sector 1 through 5, I have a -2 and a -5 button that I can push for each sector. At that point, that's just for tires off. So in qualifying, all I'm doing is looking for tires off, essentially. If the car goes off line 1, 2, or 3 tires, I give a -2. If it goes 4 tires off, I give a -5. Now, if the car touches the wall anywhere throughout the course, a typical wall ride that we like to see.
Right.
Did you guys see when Odie scraped the wall in his qualifying run?
Yeah, with the nose.
No. Maybe it wasn't. On the first day, he rubbed with his back bumper.
Right.
Yeah, it was on the first day. He rubbed the back of the car on there. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
That was a -2 for touching the wall that way. Okay. They consider that an off course. Wow. So I had to -2 him in sector 2 for that. Now that in FD, that would have been totally chill. His angle didn't change. Yeah. Super badass. Right. So that ended up being an off course right there. So they don't want drivers anywhere near the walls. So basically in qualifying, I was there to look for tires off. That was basically it. Now, when you go to the tandem side of things, the computer screen gets a little bit more complicated.
You can't handle any more complicated, dude.
You want to see complicated? That's complicated right there.
Oh my god.
Okay.
I know we've had
Chase,
not
right?
we haven't had endless debate on the show about the computer judge and all that shit, but I just don't think this is the way that the sport needs to go, the direction. This is so complicated, and I've been following drifting has been pretty much my life for 4 or 5 years now, and it's I feel like I have a good idea of what's going on, and I've got a good understanding of the sport now, but I don't understand the complexities of this judging system.
I have that exact feeling as you, and I expressed it as well, but we'll get into that later if we have time. So when you look at the tandem side of things, the lead driver, okay, I guess I missed something in qualifying. During practice that we have pre-qualifying, we will look at the entirety of practice, and we will make notes based on what drivers we think did well. So we will look for good initiation. We'll look for a good transition. We're going to look for a lot of speed throughout the track as well, maintaining momentum, looking really good all the way throughout the course. Once we see a run that we like, we'll make a note. We'll kind of get the timestamp off the screen or off our watch to let the DOS guy know exactly what run we liked. He will then set that as the bar for qualifying. So the first day, Daigo ended up getting the best run that we really liked. Daigo and Kawabata, I believe. Or was it Kawabata? It was Kawabata, but Daigo ended up first. So we set the Kawabata best lap. I think it was a 98.7 maybe was the score that he got on the DOS system. And that's the one that we went down and said, hey, we really like that one. So first of all, I was able to say what the best run of the weekend or of the practice session was just by watching. I didn't need DOS, right? Yep. I did it all on my own. From there, we took that score and brought it to qualifying. Now, every driver is going to be judged based on that run, how well they do that run. That's how drivers end up getting over 100 points. So when Daigo went out, we had a baseline set, right? So the first sector is 30 points. The second sector was 15. I think it was 15 throughout after that, something like that. Daigo got higher than what Kawabata got in a couple of sectors, right? So what Kawabata had at a 98.7 became the 100-point run. Then Daigo beat him by whatever it was, 0.7, I think he beat him by. That's how they get over 100 points. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yes.
So
right. So it's not a percentage system. It's not like he got 100% on the course.
Right.
He took Kawabata's run of a 98.7 and he bettered it. Right. That's how we got over 100 points. That's how the qualifying system works. Now, when you take all of that over to the tandem side of things, the same score, the same run that we used in qualifying is now how the lead car is judged, which is totally done by DOS in the lead position. If I see tires off, just like I do in qualifying, I can take a minus. Instead of 2 and 5, it's -1 and -3 at that point, just for tandem, right? Okay. The chase car, and this is where one of my major concerns comes in, the chase car, they can be rubbing door handles with the lead car, or they can be 17 car lengths behind. As long as they're doing the same thing as the lead car, they're going to get the exact same score as the lead car. Okay? They are judged based on the lead car automatically. So if the lead car gets a 7, I have to get into my notes here, but
hey, you got him.
Yeah. It's actually not my notes. It's the rule book that we had from the event. Yeah. They have a chart system here, a system for the points. So let's say he got a 7. That's equal to a 97-point run in qualifying. If you go up to a 7.5, it's a 97.5, and that goes all the way up to a 10. So that's where your 10 comes in. A 10 is a 100-point run, essentially, and then you go down from there. Now, let's say the first driver gets a 7 when he leads. The chase driver automatically gets a 7 right off the bat. Then what we do as judges, this is where we come into play. We either plus or minus the chase driver based on how well they did in the chase position. So were they close? Did they attack really, really hard in one section? If they do, I can give them a plus 0.5 or a plus 1 for the high speed sections and a plus 0.5 for the low speed sections. And then overall, I can give a plus 0.5 or a plus 1 if I like the overall run.
So to dumb your job down very, very severely, you are just adding a little icing on the cake of the computer system. So the computer system is still deciding the brunt of the run, but you have the ability to do minor fluctuations to try to correct for awesome or shitty things.
Exactly. So the thing that I didn't like is I didn't have any minuses that I could attribute to the chase driver. So if I thought that he did sort of a little bit better than the lead driver, what I had to do is plus 1 and then go up to the spin section. Or sorry, if I wanted to give him a little bit of an advantage, I'd do like a plus 0.5, and then I would do a -1 or something like that if I wanted to do a half point either way, in either direction. So it got a little bit, because there's no plus 0.5 anywhere, minus 0.5 anywhere for anything. It got very, very complex in that way. So I'd have to say over the radio, hey guys, I wanted to give the chase driver like a half point less. So what I had to do is plus him 0.5 and then -1 in an area that really I didn't make any sense. But I said for the math to work, that's what I have to do.
Weird.
So my issue with this, it happened a couple of times. The lead driver, okay, Daigo did this once. He did a really poor lead run. He did like a 6.5 point lead run. Yeah. The chase driver at that point gets a 6.5 as well, right? And let's say the chase driver did a slightly better job. You know, he was close to him somewhat, didn't really attack super hard, but didn't fall back. In that case, you might give him a plus 0.5. So now you've got a 6.5 for the lead and a 7 for the chase. Now the chase driver becomes the lead. When the lead car, now when he's in the lead, he does a kick-ass lead run. He gets like a 9 or 9.5. Daigo automatically gets a 9.5 as well,
because he's tied to the lead car's run. Automatically, he has an advantage there because the lead driver ended up giving him a better lead, which gave him a better chase score as well. At that point, if Daigo did an okay job, I just leave it even. Daigo automatically wins because he's got a 9.5 based on the lead run, whereas the other guy only got a half point more than Daigo, so he only had an 8 instead, or sorry, a 7 instead of the 6.5. Daigo probably has more points overall, or it might be a tie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, no, it doesn't. I don't believe it makes sense in the terms of is it fair or anything. But I understand at least what you're talking about at this point.
Yeah. Okay. So you see how it functions, but you see how it's not fair.
Can you just unlink the points? If you just unlink the lead and the chase points, doesn't that fix this? But I guess then you don't have a basis.
That's how DOS is designed. That's how the system functions. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So you end up with an unbalanced tandem in that sense, right? So that was my main concern, my main issue, I guess, with the tandem scoring.
And before we continue with the whole DOS thing, I remember Alexi was mentioning that it wasn't DOS. It was called something else.
EDS.
EDS. But it's the same thing. Like, it was all run by the same. Like, I went and had a look at the tent to see who was in the tent running the system, and it was the same dudes who always do it. And it was all the same hardware and the same antennas and everything on the cars. So yeah, same thing.
Okay. Alexi, we're of course talking in large chunks here. Do you have any comments on what Ryan had just said?
No, I think it's great to have Ryan here today explaining all that. I knew enough that I needed to in previous D1s to give an explanation as to what was going on. But like Ryan said, like I've gone to ask them, like, how do I explain this and how do I explain that? And they wouldn't really tell me. They wouldn't want to tell me why certain things were happening, because I was kind of like, all right, I'll just try and roll with it and try and explain. Like, if something weird, see, it's like regular sort of even human judging. 9 out of 10 times, 9 out of 100 times, when you generally anyway, you look at a judge score and you go, yeah, I know why he did it. I might not agree 100% with it, but I get it and I can explain it, like, as from a commentator's point of view. But the DOS sometimes is a bit like, I think I know why, but I don't want to say why I think this happened because I'm probably wrong, or there's some sort of other factor I'm not aware of or thinking of. And
we say wrong stuff on the show all the time. Just do it.
Well, we're gonna get Forsberg to call in and correct us, are we? Yeah. So there are. I mean, just from a commentator's point of view, there's sometimes when I have to. Well, this is what I think, and just try and make it entertaining rather than be factual. Because I mean, look, it gets so tiring trying to explain. Like, Ryan just spent the last how many minutes explaining how all this works, and you can't. I mean, as a commentator, you can't do that because people they'll just glaze over and they'll go and they'll just keep scrolling through their feed and look at cat pictures.
I think it needs to make the sport digestible for future masses. It's got to be gladiator style, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah. The other portion of that is when I'm inputting my score, I think along the FD lines as I want to be able to choose the driver that I think did a better job. Now, regardless of what the other guys choose as a driver in FD, I know that I can defend my decision because I have everything behind my decision. I have everything from qualifying. I have what I spoke about in the meeting to describe how a driver can win, what they have to do to win, right? Now, when I go to this D1 style DOS system, I'm just inputting numbers into a system. I don't know what the other guys are putting for scores, first of all. I have no idea. Another thing was we were completely separate at this event. Not that that makes a difference in terms of inputting scores, but I was in my own little tower. David was in his own little tower, and back at the main tower was the main judge. So we were completely separate. But when you just put in a bunch of numbers into a computer system, it's very disconnected from the final result because the other drivers are going to put in their math. DOS is going to put in its math. Yeah. And sometimes the outcome you go, oh, that's not what I expected or wanted as a result. That's not. And there's no way I can even defend what I'm saying because my individual score isn't put anywhere. It's not really divulged, right?
Is there a pre-event drivers meeting where, like in FD, where you guys tell the drivers what you want to see?
Yes. So the first drivers meeting was led by the full Japanese team. And because it's supposed to be run FIA style, they let the clerk of the course run the whole thing. Okay, and they kind of gave us a brief little time in the first meeting to talk, but in essentially they said, don't ask any questions that are in that book we gave you guys with all the instructions for how to drive, all the judging parameters. You have to understand, looking through that scoring thing, it's all mathematics because it's a computer, right? It's not, they don't really give you, do this, you'll get a good score. It's more like, if you are doing this, the angle will be scored this way, and it's a little bit confusing. So some drivers wanted to ask some questions. How do I do a good job?
Right.
And I was told that, you know what, it's in the manual. Tell them to read the manual, kind of thing. Wow. So very different as well. Now, we remedied that for the second drivers meeting, and I think that we did a much better job. At that point, we had discussions, and we said, look, we need to tell these drivers what to do. The U.S. guys had never driven with DOS except Matt Field. A bunch of the other guys hadn't either, so they were confused. Why are we not getting the scores in practice that the top guys are? And we had to break it down. So I said, you're going through the blank section, guys. Don't pour on the same angle at the end of zone 2 that you want to have through the blank section into zone 3. You're not going to get the scores that the other guys are getting. So the blank section is called I think Kamimoto referred to it as an angle adjustment zone. Mm-hmm. So what the top guys were doing is when they were exiting, and we had cones on the ground to mark the end and the beginning of zones, when they were entering the blank area, they would pull angle out of the car, they would speed up, drive not straight, but with really low angle, and then just before the next sector started, they would snap the car to angle, like big angle, because it was pretty much a hairpin, and then they would hold that angle all the way around the corner. They got great scores. Their angle entering the zone was good, and all the way through it, they were, because the car was set right, no changes in angle, their stability of angle. There are 5 different things that this thing looks at. I might be able to find them if you really want me to. And also the speed that they had was good too, because they were back on throttle with their R comps getting through that section. So these are little things that people didn't know going in that we had to tell them in the second session. So they kind of wasted their first session not knowing that that was a thing.
So it didn't matter where in the track they were at, as long if they were in the inside line of that hairpin or the outside line of that hairpin, as long as they went through that entire section, meeting all the requirements that DOS is looking at, they would still get a good score. It doesn't matter where in that track they were at, just as long as they did it right.
100%. There's no line associated with the DOS system at all, so the driver can go wherever they want. We saw, lead cars that were just hanging their tires over the white line on the inside, and we saw some guys that were mid-track, and we saw some that were a little further wide as well. The one thing about the system is it looks at the average speed through a sector. It doesn't look at the time it took to get through that sector. So as long as you had a high speed, whether you can make it work on the inside or you wanted to be a little bit further out on the line, as long as your speed was high, that's all it cared about. It didn't look at the line at all. So
as a lead driver, would it be a disadvantage or an advantage to go in the inside line or the outside line?
Whatever was fast for you. A lot of guys were on the inside, let's be honest, and that made the chase drivers go on the inside, which put them off the track. And there's 0 tire off for the chase car. We never applied it once the whole event, a point deduction for the chase car. Nobody ever did. And you saw how far off people were going in the chase position. So Kamimoto, the D1 judge, was explaining to us that as long as the chase car is within proximity to the lead car and making an effort to stay with them, there's no deduction on the line at all, on the tires off at all for going off track like that. Now, he said the only time you would give a deduction for tires off in the chase car is if they were many car lengths back, they had either made a mistake and were not able to get back to the lead car without going way off the course. But there were some pretty big tires off in the chase positions, but they were never deemed tires off.
So the bottom line being is that it didn't matter where in the track they went to. So the bottom line being is that no matter where in the track the drivers were at, if they're the outside line, inside line, as long as they stayed somewhere between those lines, then they were good.
Yes, 100%. It's accurate. Yeah.
In the effort, of course, we could talk about judging and the criteria for many hours to continue, but in the effort of pushing forward, let's just move on into some other topics of this. What did you think about the track layout? I mean, I've already expressed joking frustration, but it's obviously a serious criticism of a second gear initiation does not become the best and brightest drivers in the sport. And I feel like the track layout as a whole did not challenge, nor did it really demonstrate the skill required to be a top tier level drifter.
And not just the layout, but the surface itself. It seemed like it was very, very jumpy, like a little uneven. Yeah. Maybe because it was a parking lot.
Yes, there seemed to be a couple of cuts in the pavement that had been repaved that weren't the smoothest. So there were a couple of issues that we saw with cars kind of dipping in those. In terms of the layout itself, I think the original Odaiba layout would have been better, but the FIA guys were concerned about safety going into the wall at that speed because the walls were not the biggest and heaviest walls you could probably get for the whole track. You could see some sections had the bigger, heavier walls, but some had the smaller ones. So they said, you know what, we're not going to go into that first corner at high speed just because of the equipment that was on hand. The little kink to the right and how tight that hairpin was, I felt we should have been on a bigger course, a more high-speed course, something with a little bit more challenge than what was there. Like Alexi said, I think it was mid-90s, the top speed, and there was a bit of a gap there between the top guys and the guys that were just below the top-level guys. So clearly a lot had to do with tire grip. The winners,
which is something I want to bring up next.
Yeah, both rounds were won by Toyo, the 888s. So, pretty much a semi-slick.
Right.
But the regulations allowed for the cars to use whatever regulation their home series ran with. So that meant that D1 guys could use the R comps or the semi-slicks, and the rest of the field, not the rest of the field, I think the two Russian guys were running on them as well. And then I don't think anybody else was. Maybe Yokoi was on Nankang's. I think they're like a step up from a street radial, but
what is
low.
Compare this to something that most of us and most of our listeners might understand, like an FD series, like a Falcon RT 615K Plus or a Hankook RS3. Like, how do these compare?
Well, those are called street performance tires. They're an ultra high performance street tire. The tires that the guys in D1, the Russian guys were running on, are actual track tires that I don't even think are they even legal on the street to run with those things? But they're an R comp essentially. They have,
which is drastic.
Which is what?
They're like an 80 treadwear or something like that.
And I think what we're running on is like 250 treadwear, roughly.
Yeah, between 180, 250, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Which that is a arbitrary number at best, but still, it's a drastic, as I'm sure many race car drivers can tell you, tires are just about everything, and you could definitely see it in the guys that were running them. They just had gobs of grip and would pull away at certain sections, and there's no chance for certain drivers to follow.
Well, just real quick, Sam, we were talking about the track layout and the speed. We were talking about 85 miles an hour was mid-average pack. That's 52 miles an hour, and then 95 kilometers an hour is about 58 to 59 miles an hour. So that was their entry speed into initiation.
Was that kilometers or?
That's miles per hour.
No, but
95 kilometers.
Oh, so that was 95 kilometer per hour.
Yeah. Not miles per hour. So they're entering anywhere from 52 to about 58 miles an hour.
Which seems actually pretty average. Seems maybe a little bit on the slower end of FD courses, but for some reason,
I think the slowest course is what? Would you consider Long Beach, and that's still 70 something?
Yeah, like New Jersey might be around 60 miles an hour.
Okay, so it's slower than most FD, but that still seems fast-ish, but it's super slow to view, at least from the camera angle. It just looked like there was less than a second between
especially with these big cars, like a big GTR with 20-inch wheels, like moving at 40 miles per hour looks weird.
Well, I think like we were talking about this track itself. Just imagine how much cooler it would have been at Fuji Speedway or something like that.
Well, Alexi, what track would you think would benefit this event better than Odaiba?
Well, I mean, like you just said there, like Fuji Speedway would actually probably be a pretty good venue, just because it is the venue itself is such a big, it's a Fuji Speedway, so it's a Formula One track, The layout there probably would have suited most of the cars, I'd say. I don't think it would have given too much of an advantage to any of the drivers in particular. So, yeah, probably, I mean, out of all the D1 tracks that they currently run, it's sort of hard to say. But, look, it's not an easy thing to like you have to consider a lot when running like the event that they're running. I mean, like was said before, it's a central location that's accessible to many people. It brought in, like the hotel where everybody was staying was literally across the road. The logistics of it, I think, were kept as simple as possible for the sake of, for the sake of running it. But I don't know. I mean, there have been layouts used at Odaiba before where they're well into third gear for the entry, and we have seen some. Like if you just look at crash compilations of D1 Grand Prix, I'd say at least 1 out of 3 have been from Odaiba, and there's been quite a few cars actually written off there. So I'm not saying that I think it's a good idea to have that slower entry, but when you got to consider too, when you're bringing together a lot of people from all over the world with different levels of cars, different styles of driving. I don't want to say it's a good idea to try and what's the word?
Equalize everybody.
Yeah, equalize everyone. Give like everyone's like an equal handicap, because most cars are pretty fast. Like all those drift cars are kind of to about 100 kilometers an hour, probably about the same acceleration rate. So,
but that seems to give an advantage to the Japanese drivers.
Well, look at this. Gocha was running an SR20 in his car.
Yeah.
Well, he drives like a maniac.
No, he does. But once again, as Alexi was saying, it's like this kind of even the playing field, because once again, everybody about the 100 kilometers, everybody's about the same playing field.
Yeah.
But above that, you're going against Kawabata or Daigo. They're probably gonna kick you in the.
Are they running like max power on their cars? Daigo and Kawabata for this event?
Even that they do or don't, I don't think that makes a difference. But
Daigo was hanging the inside wheel through the whole first corner, so I think he high grip level and high power level as well. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is look at the longevity of the sport itself. If they say, do you know what, we couldn't go to any other track because it takes a lot of variables. Getting people to the track. It's in a great surrounding location. Well, if that's all they have, then what do we do from here? You know what I mean? Like you look at Fuji Speedway and things like that. Wouldn't that be a good test to see what type of draw they can get for having the first FI event, rather than saying, "Oh, we know this is going to be a cookie cutter, great turnout. Let's just throw it here instead."
So there were a couple of aspects to this behind the scenes that I think played into the decision to be at Odaiba. First of all, is that next weekend they have Tokyo Drift right there. I went around the location the day after the event, and all they were tearing down were the tents. They're probably going to leave the track up and just use their own layout at the same track. So there's the cost aspect of it for D1. They've got everything there ready to go next weekend for their Tokyo Drift event. That's the first thing. The second thing is there was an FIA mobility conference at the hotel we were staying at across the street this past weekend with the event. So on the political side of things, it's nice to have the FIA right across the street. It's perfect. They had I don't know how many hundreds of members there from all around the world, and they were all able to cross the street and come to the event as well. So that was a good thing from the FIA's perspective. Thirdly, if you go to a place like Fuji, they run huge motorsports events there all the time. That's the point of Fuji Speedway. They do world endurance competition, whatever it's called. They do a lot of things there. There are hotels. They can support all of these things there. And in my point of view, this is the FIA event. This isn't a local drift event where we should try to be fair to everybody. They run Formula One. They run WRC. This is the top level. This is supposed to attract the best drivers in the world and be top level competition as well. So when we saw the size of the area that they had, it kind of wasn't to the level of FIA that I would expect.
I agree.
In terms of what they're putting together. Now, how much did they have control of in terms of where they were going to do everything? D1 won the bid with the application being we're going to use the Odaiba layout, the Odaiba track. So I think a lot of things played in, probably the short run up to the first event. There were a lot of things that led to it being the way it was that we're hoping that we can remedy for the next one that we do. in the future. So like I wrote online earlier, this is a starting point. There's only upwards to go from here. It can only get better. And I think that seeing the way that it was done, we know where we have to be better, and we're going to work on improving in all those key areas for the next one that who knows when that's going to be. But I guess planning is going to start soon.
And what do you foresee for that next event? Not so much, I guess, any parameters. What do you see for that?
Well, you guys heard that Jean Todt was there, the president of FIA.
Yep.
The interesting story is that they had a VIP area set up for him inside a tent with a TV with the live stream from I guess it was the Malaysian Grand Prix. On Saturday would have been qualifying, I believe. And he chose, for the most part, to sit out and watch our event. He had a bracket that he was filling out and trying to guess who was going to win. And he filled it all out by hand and then signed it. And they're going to either they're going to frame it or something for the FIA guys. But he only went and watched the F1 for maybe half an hour during that whole day. So I think that's a huge win for us because he loved it. He thought it was awesome. He was really into the event. I think for the future of the sport, that's fantastic. Yeah. I think from what I heard, he was so excited. He said, let's just run a whole series of this for next year. And they went, whoa, relax. we need to take some steps here, right? So they're talking about doing at least one event next year again, maybe multiple. We'll see.
I also heard too, Ryan, that the contract that Sunpro signed with the FIA is only one event with the potential to re-sign and extend for a second event. So potentially at this point now, the contract is reopened for bidding for another organization to get in there to take the FIA contract from Sunpros.
I also heard that is the fact that it was a 1 year with option to sign for multiple. So we'll see what happens as we start going into making a new drift working group and judging working group as well for the FIA. And they'll probably have a technical working group as well, from what I heard, so that we can get everything on the same page in all three of those aspects for the future.
So do you foresee a lot of what we discussed today being addressed for a future event?
Oh, yeah. Trust me. Okay, Tuesday was my first meeting with everybody at the D1 offices, and I was, how do you put it nicely? I was incensed at the fact that we were using DOS after the meetings that we had had previously. And I believe it was the fact that we were so late in having that meeting. We were kind of stuck with the DOS system, even though some people didn't want it anymore. In the future, I believe that we're going to address that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys have any type of closing briefing after the event? Did you guys all get together and discuss how everybody kind of took the event? Was there any closing meeting?
We had a lot of meetings as we went through the weekend. We had pre-meetings, post-briefing meetings. It's incredible the amount of meetings that we had. You can understand the size of a company such as the FIA. It's a little bureaucratic. We got a lot of people, a lot of moving parts. They like to have paper copies of everything. So it's very by the book, if you will. It would probably drive people at a Pro-Am, a drift event, and absolutely bananas. You need somebody to sign a sheet saying that they're retiring from the event, the reason why, and that has to be filed. It has to be signed by the stewards and the competition director and all these different things. So it's very complex. Wow. At the end of the event, we sat down and had a quick debrief, but more of okay, everybody, take what you've learned over this weekend and put together an email and send it to us next week. And we're going to compile everything and make all the notes. Otherwise, we would have been there for hours after trying to figure out what went right, what went wrong, who can do what. But it was a quick little pat on the back for everybody at the end. We got through it. It was a pretty well-received event from people that were on site. And I think that it went fairly smoothly considering some of the hiccups that could have occurred.
Yeah, what's important is that they're receptive to future change and criticism, and not saying that what we do is God and we are right regardless. So, I mean, that's good news. And of course, I think it needs to be taken with a grain of salt that we are a small portion of the drifting community, and for better or for worse, Corey Paco and myself are largely Formula Drift fans. It's what we know and what we do. So this is definitely a foreign style of event for us. and any commentary we have needs to be kind of taken through that lens. Granted,
Hey, look, I got to tell you something that, like, after I've been to a diver for D1 Grand Prix multiple times. I've done the commentary like at the beginning of this year and all of last year as well. So I've done for commentary 2, 4, 6, 8, now 9 events there. And also before that, as a photographer and assistant for whatever. Like remember when JR came over for that, I was helping him out for that too.
Yeah.
So I've been there many times, seen D1 run there many times. The funniest thing about this time was, and this is what struck me, is like, wow, this is actually an international, like, this is really an international event now. You know what made me think that? In the catering tent, there was a catering tent with a French chef there with the food, right? And there was a big, like, flower arrangement on the table in the middle of the room. And just for some reason, I just thought, wow, this looks really, like, international all of a sudden. Like, it just struck me as... And also all the stuff like I remember Ryan was talking about the, was it Parc Fermé and stuff where you had, like, the car impound and stuff like that, which is, like, quite funny. And we also have, I know the people who watch the live stream would have seen that. We had, like, an opera singer singing... like Nessun Dorma or something before the event too. I was like, what is going? This is like, what is going on here? This is so weird.
Yeah.
But it was. It definitely had this international flavor to it, which made it interesting. And just having drivers from all around the world too. Like, it was all different sorts of styles, and it just made it a lot more interesting. I know that some people probably didn't have the best time of it, sort of trying to adapt to the situation. But on the other hand, a lot of them did. So
right. Well, I mean, we can all agree, I think, that we want to see legitimacy added to our humble little sport here and see it grow and flourish, and hopefully we all flourish with it. And maybe our criticism is mostly of the facing of it that we got as spectators halfway across the world.
Yeah, I think there's a slight misconception that we didn't like it because our drivers didn't win, but it's definitely not that.
Hopefully no one thinks that after what we've talked about.
No, and I'm not talking about just us, but like the Americans. Like the Americans didn't like the event because the Americans didn't win. But like I personally, I was rooting for Gocha. I mean, obviously, I wanted the American guys to win, but Gocha was my man. I was like, okay, I want this guy to win. I've seen him drive, and he did pretty good, at least in the first round. But like I think after all, like. I like to see more drifting of all kinds. If I get a better understanding, or maybe that's what's missing, like a better explanation of how things are judged. And one of the things that Formula Drift did it put Ryan explaining, every after the runs, doing his explanation. Maybe that's what's missing, at least on the on this side. If at least D1 is gonna stick with the DOS system, they probably need a better explanation, like a live graph of the angles, or something like a live feed of what these machines are actually inputting. So it's not so surprising when we see results.
It's really funny that you mentioned that, because I was joking that even if I was on the mic trying to explain what was going on, I wouldn't have known myself when the results came up, because they were so random in my mind sometimes because of the way the points get inputted. And it ends up with, that's what I didn't like. The major thing I didn't like was the judges going, I'm not so comfortable maybe with the way that went overall. I get that there are 3 of us here, but numerically, I don't know how algorithms and everything work with the math when it comes to who inputs what, when. Anyway, what I wanted to say about what Sam said, are these guys with the FIA, hopefully they're open to change. Now, I could not believe how much input they had or attempted to have. I can't believe how attentive they were, how much they really tried to sit down and understand the sport from every different direction. They were asking, hey, Ryan, do you like what's going on? Do you like this? They would ask Jim. They had guys from the French Championship from France. Jérôme Vassia was there. They had people from different series all around the world, and they were picking their brains the whole time, saying, what do you think's the best idea? Do you think DOS is good? What system should we use? What's this track like? So these guys are motorsports fans. They're car guys. Like John Todd is a huge car guy himself. And they were taking the time to truly try to understand. And I was telling you guys earlier about that meeting that we had with the creator of DOS. I didn't expect the FIA guy to push him so hard. I'm happy that he did, because I probably couldn't have got the answers out of him that the FIA guy did. And it proved he didn't have to do that. He was the guy that was there to make sure the track was safe. His name is Jacques. And he sat there for almost an hour with us, grilling the guy from D1. So these guys really do care. And it's not that they wanted the event judged the way it was judged. They didn't say this is the way it has to be done. They trusted D1 to put together the bid, put together the whole system, put together the track, the safety, all of those different things. And unfortunately, the fact that in all of our meetings prior, we had said no DOS, because they kind of put everything in D1's hands, D1 ended up sneaking DOS in, if you will, in my eyes anyway. And I'm not shy to say that now. I feel like it was a misleading way that they got DOS in there when everybody in the working group, and you're talking a lot of countries that were involved in that drifting working group, said no DOS. So when I was in that meeting on Tuesday at the D1 offices, I blew up a little bit because I was upset. You have to understand that I'm a fan of this sport too. People think that I sit up in my little ivory tower and I don't give a shit about anything, but that's not the truth at all. You guys know how much that I care, how much Andy and Brian care about the sport. Right. Jim and Ryan, we all care how this sport is perceived, how it's judged, how it's handled, how it's run from top to bottom. And little things like that got us really frustrated about this event. But in the end, when it was decided that it was too late to change it, we said, okay, this is what we have. This is what we have to work with. It's in the best interest of the sport for everybody to work with what we have. And that's what we did. We did the best with what we had. And whether the fans liked it or not, the drivers liked it or not, it was there and it was fair for everybody. Everybody was aware of what it was going into it. So we came out with a good event in the end, I think, based on what we had going in. I think that's the best way I can explain it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if there was a new bid,
Get closer, Ryan.
If people were to be able to bid again on helping the FIA put on a new event, would the winning bidder, would their rules be implied, and to say if DOS is not going to be used in this next FIA event, would they have that ability to do that?
No, from now on, it's going to be based on the working group. Everything that we planned originally got kind of lost in the mix because there was a change of management of the working group and the whole drifting side of things within FIA. It was just an unfortunate timing thing. And it seems like D1 took advantage of that to run the event that they wanted to. But going forward from now, we've already discussed the fact that we're going to have the whole group together again, and we're going to come up with a good system. And I believe that I can say this, we talked a lot about telemetry being used, but as an assist to the human judges. Frederick and Olivier from the FIA feel very strongly that it should be the judges, the human judges, that end up making the final decision as to who wins or who doesn't win, based on telemetry being gathered of the run. So that would mean
like a hybrid
angle.
System.
Yeah, it would be like maybe something coming from their, probably not the F1 side of things. I don't think we have that budget necessarily, but let's say, I don't know if throttle position sensors can be used. Probably not, because that ties into electronics that would tie into ABS and traction control, but maybe using speed, maybe using in-car cameras, maybe using a device to measure angle, if we could find something that would measure angle consistently and repeatedly and accurately as well. Because we all know how difficult it is to get angle measured properly in a car. But if we can have those things at our disposal as judges, if there's an instance of a collision or maybe it looks like a brake check or something like that, we can actually look at the telemetry and say, that is exactly what happened, because look, their speed dropped by 10 miles per hour right there, where that's a throttle area where they should be not slowing down. In that sense, we're going to have the most fair and unbiased, and I wouldn't even say unbiased, more like sometimes we have to make assumptions because we don't have telemetry. This way, it would take all of that assumptive process out of it. You would look at the actual telemetry and be able to make a fair call.
Which is something we've been petitioning just into the public sphere for the existence of this show is more information for judges to make these calls. And of course, the opposite side of that coin is that it then slows down the show potentially. But if we're starting from scratch, or at least near scratch in this FIA occurrence, then maybe it does make sense to. You can't really go downhill from here, guys. I mean, you might as well try some new stuff. So I think having human judges with like you said, like you petitioned for on the show as well, is with more information at your disposal. Yeah. And maybe 2018 FIA will be a different story, and maybe it will pave the way for the bright future of drifting to come.
Yeah, the FIA is supposed to be the pinnacle of whatever sport they're involved in, right? And I think that having telemetry is, along with human judges, I think that would be the pinnacle right now. I believe D1 truly thinks that and believes in their hearts that DOS is the best way because it's all technology. They feel that because it's all technology, it's the best. It's the most futuristic, let's say, or it's the most advanced. And during my rant, let's call it, at the D1 office meeting, the creator said, you know what, you're saying that style is a big aspect of this, and like the spirit of the sport is really important. He said, I can design that into the system, into the judging system. I can make that quantitative for the system to judge also. And that's when I knew that I had lost him entirely. You guys know as well as anybody listening that there's a certain feeling to a run that, I know it sounds really corny, but when you watch a really good run, it doesn't care what it doesn't matter what the numbers say. Impact. It's an emotional thing, right? It's a feeling. It's visually, you have to see it with your own eyes. You can't let a computer judge that kind of stuff. That's why I feel that just having the information come at me with what I see can either back up what I think I saw and make it a more fair event, basically.
So do you think that Formula Drift might consider something like what you've been talking about that FIA is doing, maybe using electronics to help assist the human judges?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that, and we get proposals all the time. I just got another one from Finland over the weekend. I've gone to Belarus to test the system they have over there. We have some guys in the US with systems. We have people, I believe, in Latvia as well that have a system, and they all have their pluses and minuses. In FD, what we've been talking about a lot is how would you connect that telemetry to the fans? Because it is such a fan-based sport. We rely on fans understanding what's happening, fans liking the competition itself, and feeling like the right person was chosen for the win, right? But if we have a lot of data being splashed out on the screen or trying to convey that to fans, we feel that it might be difficult to do it quickly. So I want to wait and see what FIA is going to come up with, because we're going to end up having a lot of proposals for these systems probably at some point. But I think right now in FD, what I would like ultimately is an in-car camera that shows hand on the steering wheel, the handbrake, the transmission, the shifter, whatever way they're going to change gears, if it's an H pattern or like a sequential system. And we've even got sometimes the camera mounted in the right place, so you can see all of those things, plus what the feet are doing on the pedals. And that can be mounted on the roll cage inside the cars, and that could be sent out to the fans, because the fans would love to see that, right? I mean, who doesn't want to see an in-car camera of anything? If you watch F1 or rally or drifting, you want to see in-car cameras. It's cool to see what the drivers are doing. So that would be cool to send out to the fans on the live stream. It would also be cool to put up on the big screen at the live events. Plus, for us, it shows intentionality in the car. We can see what that driver was trying to do at the time. Was it, hands everywhere, windshield wipers on because they're losing control? Or was it they grabbed the handbrake where they shouldn't have, or were they left foot braking a lot, or whatever the thing might be that they were doing, we can catch on that camera that would be there. So for us, it's finding a way to get a good system in a car that's a good resolution, first of all, and that could be sent out live. I don't want to sit there and wait for a card to come out of a camera and be uploaded, and it's got to be right away, right?
Right.
So in my opinion, that would be the ultimate for us right now. And I think it would give the fans a good understanding and also give us the tools we need to see what's going on and who caused what out there on the track.
All right, let's move into the Instagram question.
Wait, hold on, Sam. Hold on, Sam.
You got one?
Yeah,
Corey's got it.
So I watched both days, full events from the single runs all the way up through the podium, and I made I'm going to go through this. I made a quick pros and cons list that I personally believe that things that I like and didn't like. I'm just going to run through them, what my thoughts were on it, and I'm just going to zing through this real quick. So I'm going to start off with what my pros were. Part of me thought a slow technical track was kind of interesting. Hopefully made for better tandem. You talk about people maybe just, slow the track down, better proximity. It's a great opportunity. They ran a slower track. It was great tandems. Another pro is Alexi. Alexi really saved the day. He was the one who really made the show from giving all the dialogue. He was the one who was a translator from the whole event to us. You did a phenomenal job, Alexi. That was another big pro in my book. The other thing was the diversity of cars and engines that we're not used to in the United States. Obviously, you had Kawabata, you had Daigo coming back. Then you had the R34 with the RB30. You had Gocha with SR20. You had such a wide
V8s in Japan.
Right, you didn't hear one V8 besides Odi.
Odi, yeah.
But there was a wide variety that we don't get to see very often. That was super cool. The other thing was obviously the Russians. The Russians came in and took over the event. They were the most talked about out of everybody. Even though they may not have won, they made the most impact. What was that word you used, Brian?
They were hacking the.
It was they made the most emotional impact out of the whole event, which makes them so memorable. I think the Russians did phenomenal.
Best tandems by far that weekend.
The other thing that I thought was a pro is I personally like the warm-up laps. As a driver standpoint, I love the whole warm-up laps. So I don't know if that's something they can implement later on down the road, but you go out there, see the course, shake the bugs off,
real quick,
go back on the grid, and take off. That was super
and maybe
cool.
hit the wall if you're Odi.
God damn it. That's
so hard.
I knew someone would say that.
Yeah, Odi had to smoke the wall in the warm-up. That's the only run I missed all weekend.
That's a big concern with warm-up laps, by the way, too. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, just you think that maybe a warm-up laps instead of a burnout box?
I personally think that's better. But you once again, you just have to do the warm-up laps when the other run group was off, so there is a little time delay there.
Yeah, I don't want to mess up your car before going in.
But that's such a rare occasion. I'd rather risk wrecking my car, getting the lay of the land, if something changed on track, or just refreshing my mind visually before actually going out there. I thought that was cool.
Okay.
So that was my pros for the weekend. My cons, Yokoi to beating a tire and being able to change tire pressure in between runs.
Ooh.
That was a big con to me. That was one of the biggest. Because I was like, wait a second, Yokoi debeated. Oh, and you could take a break and change tires. And who was that ended up dumping like a whole ice bucket on the radiator? It took about 5-10 minutes in between each run.
I think it was the 350Z with the Subaru scoop on the back.
That was Pon, with the filling up his radiator.
And it was like, wait, you didn't call it 5 minutes. You just pulled over to your crew, took up time of the show, and just cooled your car down. Okay, that was kind of cool.
Which, by the way, also there was when there was contact, it took like 20 minutes.
That's what I'm going to get to next.
To deliberate.
So that was the big one, and I still want to try to understand that. The other one was I'm not a big fan of the 3-2-1 go.
3, it was 2, 1.
And the only reason I say that is I'm looking at FIA and I'm looking at the fans of FIA, and it's like you watch Formula One, the lights light up, lights turn off, everybody takes off. It's a very traditional way of starting motorsports. It's super cool. And then you have this really animated, like
Japanese.
Imagine like the people at Mercedes and Ferrari that are tuning in from Formula One Malaysia watching this and they're like, oh, that's kind of, you know what I mean? It's just that perception. It's that perception. You're looking at the highest echelon of motorsports watching an animation of 3, 2, 1 go.
Yeah.
That was just my personal opinion.
It used to be worse than that. It's actually gotten better, I think. At least this time the graphics were fairly sort of high. At least the production value was high with sort of the the Dragon Ball style flashes and the Japanese clouds. And back a while ago, and I let them know this every time I could. They had this lady announcer who would she would announce the drivers. Like she was a female announcer, but she was trying to do it like a boxing, like a wrestling announcer, like the let's get ready to rumble sort of thing. Like it was like cringing every time. I was like, oh, stop. And they don't use her anymore. But I agree. It was a bit over the top sort of
it just
cheese.
Wasn't that classy, tasteful feeling you would get from
it wasn't very professional.
Formula One.
It was more.
It didn't reflect the opera singer champagne dinner.
Oh,
yeah. The other one was too is the commentators on the ground had no audio to the live stream. So like you would see like that commentator that would interview the drivers after each run, all you would see is their mouth moving, and they'd put the microphone into the driver compartment. Nobody else could hear that other than the people in the live audience.
Which that was probably particular of this event. Like they didn't thought all of that, like all the possibilities.
Well, once again, this is an
But
FIA
it's FIA, they're supposed
But
to.
I agree. Yeah.
So there's no argument to that. That should, even little details like that should have been taken care of, and that's why I says it didn't look like there was much preparation going to this. Even like going to Kumo Kubo-san when he was up there with the other two announcers, they would put the cameras on them for 5 minutes and just watch their mouths move, and you have no idea. And there's 2 English translators up there with them.
That I definitely agree, and I mean, I'm not mean to be disrespectful or anything, but I think the standard language for the event should have been English, just because it's supposed to be more universal.
It doesn't matter, but even if I don't even care if they were speaking in Japanese, just to hear what they're saying and have it translated in any language, it was just there was no mics working. And that was very frustrating. So I'd watch 10 minutes.
I can explain that.
Okay, go ahead.
The reason for that was because the live stream that you guys were getting, it was leveled in a way that you'd be able to hear my voice.
Right.
And see, I talked with the on-air director, like, are they going to be able to hear the people out there? And like originally it was just going to be like literally just me and the sounds of the car, like a mic on the course, and that was it. And I was like, no, there's going to be all these other people talking. They've got the whatever his name was, Greg, or the guy in the pits, talking to the drivers in Japanese and English and translating. Like they're going to have these guys. Like I can't talk for 7 hours, like 7.5 hours straight and translate all this. Like I got to, can we kind of balance in the line a bit from the audio and their mics? He's kind of like, we'll try and balance it up, because otherwise he would have had to be there, leveling up and down the whole time, and they didn't really have enough people to do that for in the position they were in. So that's why.
So even going back to like an FD style setup, it's like you look at Lorette and Jared, right? Lorette's on the ground, audio works on live stream, and it works at the venue. That's all they would have needed, is somebody else that you can relay the information to, and they can relay it back over the live stream. And it's super simple. It's doable. You look at, once again, everybody complains about Formula Drift live stream, but they're still able to make that happen.
Yeah, I would like to see Lorette speaking Japanese.
I know you would. You have a big crush on her. I'm going to keep going through this real quick because we still got to ask you guys the fan questions. I said the DOS system was very unpredictable. We already talked about that. The camera angles were not the best at the first half of the whole competition.
I was yelling at them to change that. Yeah,
they were so close on the car, Alexi. I had no idea where they were at on track. It just I was watching this car move. So that was the other one.
It was very action movie-like, but not necessarily competition.
Here's the other one. The long debate on the one more time battles. That was absurdly long, 20 minutes. Like, once again, if there was human judges, even Ryan, maybe, I don't want to speak for you, but if it takes more than 3 minutes or 5 minutes to make a decision, throw one more time at it.
Was this the Gotcha Yokoi one?
I believe so.
It was during the contacts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one in particular, Ryan, you probably want to say what you think about this, but that was a very difficult call, because where Gotcha contacted with Yokoi was See, the thing was, it wasn't a big hit. It was like a little glancing blow, but it was the sort of the equivalent of an ankle tap, where Yokoi was literally about to begin his initiation back the other way. His bumper caught on Yokoi's bumper, and it caught him up for a second. And by the time he got his initiation going, he just spun out. So that, I wouldn't have wanted to call it either way. Right. Eventually, they called it in favor of Gotcha,
right?
And made it was like Yokoi's fault. Yokoi spun out, but that was it was a bit of a long. It was a bit hard to fill the gap, but I did try and explain. Well, if they do this, they do that. If that, right. And I'm trying to read the Facebook comments and. At the same time,
there was one point you're going through the Facebook comments, and you're like, maybe I shouldn't go to those.
Maybe I'll go back to
You're like, okay, never mind. We're not going to go to those. Yeah. Real quick, I got a few more, and then we'll move on. Chase car going off track. Not a big fan of that. The track was only lined with chalk. Once again, that's allowing the car to go off track. There wasn't very...
Flour. It was flour.
Oh, it was flour. Great.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that's what. They just put.
We use that in ride and drives all the time too.
Yep.
So that's why biodegradable.
So that's why when
because you just leave it.
The guys with the brooms, when they kind of came trying to clean the track, and Alexi was like, no, leave the line there. I thought you were joking about it.
No, that's the line of the track. That was so funny. I was watching that. They were sweeping the line away.
The little Nolly minivan.
Okay, here's my last few. And Alexi, you like this one. How about the loud dubstep that was constantly picked up over the audio?
Oh man, I got so sick of what was the name of that song?
It was a
Roundabout or something.
There was a Skrillex song.
There was a Tokyo girls go bang bang. Tokyo girls go bang bang.
Yeah, they do. Like, for some reason, I've yet to find out who's the guy in charge of the song selection, because like sometimes it'll be like, you know, it was like Slipknot or something like that, or like something like that, and then the next one it's like Skrillex, and then it's like some other random thing. I was like,
Bonfire.
I don't know.
Well, that's I'm picturing Ferrari and Mercedes and Lotus.
Yeah, was it Bonfire?
That
one. Yeah.
I'm just picturing Lotus and Ferrari and all these heads of motorsports sitting there listening to Skrillex over and over.
It was like, okay, like if you're playing a video game, like the soundtrack of a video game, but you know, like after playing for a little while, you get the same songs.
Yep.
And
That's it.
repeat,
They have
and
a 10-track playlist.
Yeah.
Tony Hawk Pro Skater is
There
the
you
one
go.
who did that to me. Here's the other one. This is one of my last ones. The female commentator. Every time there was close tandem, there was like no
She'd
dialogue.
scream.
It was and I'm like, what is happening? But they would scream like they've never seen drifting or proximity before. When it's like, and Alexi, when you're watching, you would give dialogue on what's happening, or if somebody made a correction to close the gap. Instead of, I just heard, mommy,
I had a crush on Screaming Lady though.
Yeah, so
yeah, the normal guy, obviously we all know Manapi, the guy who does the commentary for D1 Grand Prix. You know, the guy's like the voice of drifting who screams when things go crazy. Like, at least he's like, he says, you know, fun, interesting things regarding the drifting. But he was there that weekend, but he was working as he was the assistant to the clerk of course that weekend. So I said, like, when I saw him, I was like, "Oh, you're here? You're gonna be doing commentary?" He's like, "No, I'm assistant clerk of course." And I was like, "Oh, so who's doing the commentary?" It's like, Kuma-san and these two other people. Oh, okay. So, and they were just sort of regular, like, professional announcers. They weren't like actual drift people. So.
Oh yeah, and when they would announce, they'd be like, "Michael Essa!" I was like,
the body,
and it's like, yay, it's a celebration.
That was kind of cool. I mean, at least that was kind of like
the introduction was good, but it was just the constant screaming, like somebody's poking her with the pen or something, where it's like, But once again, that's just small details. But that was things that we're definitely not used to in Formula Drift.
Yeah. One thing that they didn't do in Formula Drift, and I loved the little halftime show.
That's exactly what I was going to say. One of my pros was the halftime shows.
Yeah, my buddy Keisuke Kamimori was driving his his Nissan Serena SR20. And he was drifting a minivan on, like, that was my dream right there. That should have been me and FD.
Do you know what was funny? Real quick, while I was watching that, I see this quad turbo 2J with a jetpack, and I'm sitting here like, how do I just put my V8 in the car? I'm like, how is this guy able to do that? But anyways, that's my little pros and cons list. I know it was very short, but I watched it. I wanted just to get it out there. And now, to Instagram questions. I know it's been a long episode, but we want to get these questions answered by Alexi and Ryan.
I think Ryan's still here. Ryan's still here.
I'm still here. I'm waiting.
So we're on the home stretch here, boys. I know you've only been home for an hour. Ryan, you still got to go grocery shopping and play Leapfrog with the boys. But let's see what you got there, Yako.
Okay. I have a question from Maximum Attack 323. Question for both. Should DOS be redesigned to factor in line?
You're asking if it should be reassigned to factor in line?
Redesigned. So like the DOS thing actually measures line as well. Probably like, I don't know, GPS positioning, like that you guys think that
I think no, because I don't think DOS should be there in the first place.
Hey!
But also, to bring a technical aspect to that, there's not an accurate enough sensor, I believe, to really do that at the moment without greatly increasing the cost of the system, is my best guess.
The system in Belarus that I looked at does. They actually outline the track. They drive all the way around the outline on each side and make the boundaries of the course, and then you can actually watch live as the cars drive through where they are on the track. I don't know how accurate it is, but it looked good from, standing back 10 feet away kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I stand corrected. I assume that was just too expensive to do, but if they can do it, then that's pretty rad.
Yeah.
I do know that I did this a long time ago. I actually had access to one of the drift boxes that they used there. This is like 10 years ago or something, back when they first brought it out. And I actually took some GPS data, because you can record it and export it in various formats. And I took that data, I I imported it into a 3D animation software and assigned all that data to a model of my car and overlaid that on a map of Oran Park where I used to drift. And I could actually like draw a line that showed my drifting line throughout the entire track, and the car would animate in real time.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, instant replays showing, you know, how far the cars are off a certain line. I mean, that's not. I mean, I've done it personally, so not in real time, obviously, but it's possible to do that. I think that line. See, remember, we've got to make it more obvious for the spectators too. And line is quite easy to show, like anybody can understand. Like, I mean, it's like in a video game. You know, you drive the Forza with the line on. It's like it's red and green, and you got to follow the line and stuff. And it makes it a lot easier for people to follow. So, I think it would be better because literally one of the biggest things you saw is like, ooh, doesn't the chase car, like, they don't have any line to follow? And I guess, especially on a course like that where there's no boundaries of the course, it's just all flower. I didn't know that. Flower marks. Like, essentially, it's like, well, you're just sort of sliding around with no purpose, it looks like. So, yeah, I think line would be a good thing to use. Yeah.
Yeah, that line complements to clipping points, so if there's no clipping points, it kind of defeats the line.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. Zones and clips.
So here you go. Max Frolic has a question for both of you guys. $20,000 budget. What car would you build and why?
Ooh. JZX, because they're awesome.
What for? What purpose did he say? Or no?
It's up to you, man.
Yeah, it's up to you. $20,000. Build any car and why?
$20,000. S15 SR20 S15 Silvia with a built engine, TD06 turbo, and you know, cams and pistons and all that sort of stuff.
20 grand in what form of currency? That seems like
in the USA, you're looking at 60.
Well, I'm talking about here in Japan.
Yeah,
If you
I know,
gave
I'm
me,
just kidding.
if you gave me 20 grand, you could quite easily build. That right now in Japan, that is I think is the ideal drift car. Like, I mean, JZX obviously is a great car to drive, but as far as a drift car goes, right now the average. Like, for example, I actually had a conversation about this with Drift Tengoku editor Kawasaki a while ago. I said, like, what, like, because people people ask you all the time, right? Like, what car should I buy? And he gives two answers. The first answer is an automatic JZX 90 turbo. And the reason he says automatic is because they're dirt cheap because there's so many of them. The non-BVTi engine with the twin turbo is dead stock, is an awesome engine, even with just a slight boost up. And if it's automatic, it's still really easy. Like, I've drifted an automatic JZX90, and it went hard. Like, I was quite surprised. And there's guys here who make shift kits for them, so they hold the gears and all that sort of stuff. And the thing is, if you get bored of it, then you can just drive it as a daily driver. So that's what he says.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
But on the other hand, he says if you're talking to a drift person, it's that it's an S15 Silvia SR20. A bolt-on turbo kit and like various engine upgrades, cooling and that sort of stuff. So
what could you pick up? What could you pick up S15 for out there right now?
Like a turbo one?
Yeah.
A good one's $7 or $8 grand.
Yeah, my God.
Jesus.
All right. I mean, I have seen actually. There's a shop near me that sells like a sort of good quality used cars. Like that's like they got like 80 Supras and all that sort of stuff, like S15s, R33 GTRs and stuff like that. And they had an S15 a while ago for about $18,000, but it was like absolutely mint. I couldn't see the miles on it, obviously, but it looked perfect.
Wow.
So yeah, they're getting to that age now where they're kind of like on the edge of not being cost effective for your average person, but very cost effective for people who are going to rip stuff out and change parts anyway.
And Ryan, you have S15s out in Canada, don't you?
Oh yeah.
What do they sell for out there?
There's definitely a JDM tax once they're here. I've seen automatic NA S15s for probably $6,000, but
Damn.
yeah, but if you want like a Spec R with some goodies on it, you're looking probably like 12 to 14 grand,
That
maybe a little bit more.
is so obtainable and affordable compared to what we can get in the US.
It is.
And obviously the S15 is not legal here, but Hey, I feel a little bit good that you said SR20 with engine mods. S chassis are cool because I have one of them.
Yeah.
Oh, and also, Forsberg kicked my car out of his driveway.
Where's it at?
Nice.
A buddy's shop right now. I'm paying rent at a shop now. 'Cause
Oh,
You don't
awesome.
have a driveway?
no, I don't.
Oh.
Unfortunately, believe me, if I did, I would absolutely be keeping it there. But
that's the Venice life for you.
that's the Venice Beach life. Yeah.
Right.
Here's I got another one for you guys. This is from Race Core Stuff. Question for both you guys: who's gonna win Irwindale?
Ooh.
Ooh. No comment.
Ryan.
No
Ryan,
comment. Yeah, I was gonna say Lanteigne can't, with good conscience,
Yeah,
say that.
he knows the script. So
Yeah.
let's
Yeah,
let's just
I
leave it
can't
to
tell you
Alexi.
what the script is.
Yeah.
Let me just who is even in it? I don't even know.
Alexi, you
He
look.
doesn't follow
All right,
it
hold
up
on.
boring
Alexi,
Formula
you
Drift
look.
stuff.
Sam, who are you going for? Irwindale?
Who's gonna win the event itself?
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be wild card again. Like someone like Field's gonna win it again, or Odie, or maybe God, I don't even know. I'd love to see Vaughn on the podium this year, only because I'm on his team or whatever. But but yeah, I mean, I think we all believe that James Dean's gonna win the championship. Maybe Osbo will win the event and not win the championship. And that would be kind of poetic, I guess, maybe, if
Parker,
Osbo
who do
wins
you
the
got?
event but doesn't beat.
I was gonna agree with Brian about Kaufman.
He's due for one here soon.
He needs to be on the at least podium. I think he's gonna. Yeah.
Didn't Matt Field win last year?
Yeah.
Because he was in the
Matt Field won last
game of Wars
Yeah.
car.
Gear of War.
Game of Wars.
You know your game
Gears
is
of
pretty
War.
good.
Yeah, so I think he's due. I would like to see Kaufman, and I would like to see
You guys don't see one of the mains up there?
June Meng.
Yeah, one of the June Megs. No, you don't see one of the big 3 to 5. You don't see one of them up there.
obviously, in full reality, I think James Dean is gonna win.
Well, he's gonna win
Yeah.
the event or the
No,
obviously-
the event.
What about Kristaps?
Kristaps is due.
Yeah, he's a man on a mission too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Alexi, you had some time to look. Who do you got there, boss?
Oh look,
Oh, he wasn't looking.
no, I was.
I hope he says Harry Berry.
Who's Harry Berry?
He's
It's,
qualified
Corey's
33rd all year. He's looking for a
I don't
breakout.
know. I mean, Byron's been doing pretty well this year. Like we saw him
yeah.
over here.
Touche.
We saw him over here at the FD Japan for a couple of battles too, and he didn't do that well. But hopefully he does better this round at Irwindale. So I'm going
Hopefully
for
he
Byron.
doesn't win.
Actually, funny story about that. The guys in the little K van doing the stoppies.
No. Yep.
They actually had an FIA banner on the front glass of the window, like the front glass, and it had the name of the driver. The name of the driver was Jack Knifer.
Oh.
So there you go.
That's a new code name.
We got Jack Knifer over here, and we've also got Byron in the United States.
That's pretty cool.
J Wright 12C. Which drivers do you guys would have wished made the FIA Drift Cup?
I would have liked to see people from either like Ireland or the UK or
Dude, Australia.
I got to say it. Otherwise, people yell at me. Well, from Australia too.
Yeah.
Like we need there's so much talent in the colonies that we need to that we would have liked to see over there. But I think, especially as Australia's concerned, I don't really think there's anyone right now who would be able to compete at that level. I think because our level of competition in Australia right now is we've got a lot of good drivers, but I don't think any of them have the kind of experience that you'd need to enter a competition like that. Again, not skill-wise, but just as far as everything else is concerned, I think right now we're not really at that stage. I mean, but people from like UK, Ireland especially, I think would be able to, we would have been able to throw down quite well. So
I think what's his name, Corey? Power Vehicles.
Andrew Gray.
Andrew Gray would have been perfect for it.
He would have been good.
Yeah.
As a follow-up question, I didn't really get to ask earlier. We heard from you guys what you thought about the whole thing. How do you think the drivers felt, and do you think that this event or the perceived shortcomings of it is gonna deter drivers from going to the next one?
I had a couple of I miss Formula Drift, which made me feel good.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to deter people from coming because we're going to change it in a way that's going to make it fair, unbiased. I guess unbiased isn't the right word. Fair and easy to understand and less complex and more driver based. So I think it's gonna attract more people next time than anything.
Alexi, what do you think?
Look, I always would go back to that story. I forget what it is, but I think it was in NASCAR where it was an event like a long time ago in NASCAR where someone, like there was a protest due to some rule or something happened. I'll have to look it up. And all the drivers said, okay, we're gonna we're not gonna come to the event. We're gonna what's the word when nobody comes?
Boycott.
We're going to boycott the event. No one's going to show up. Your event's going to be horrible because no one's going to show up, and there's going to be no drivers because we all don't like this happening. And the organizer said, okay, fine. And then they ran the event, and sure enough, everybody showed up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no matter, like, look, it's obvious that we had so many people from all around the world come to this, obviously with expectations that maybe were not met or not as, the event maybe was not as good to many people as what they have back home or what they're used to or what they see from other, running other places. But it's the FIA. And it's like, it's if something is the highest level, it's going to attract everybody regardless of what they say. Because, I mean, if you're going to have the best people in the world, they're going to want to go up against the other best in the world. So I don't think, and like Lanteigne said, we're going to make it better. It's not going to get worse. It's not going to get worse. I mean, obviously, you look at any other motorsport, it's going to go up and down. Things are going to happen due to multiple reasons, but it's going to get better. I mean, drifting is just, I can't really understand the mindset of people who are like, oh, drifting's dying. It's not. It's more people know than ever what drifting is. There's more money in it than ever. There's more people doing it than ever, and the skill level is just going up. It has not even, hit peak.
Yeah.
Like you look at the entire field of like established motorsports. The guy in 50th place is still really good, and is half the time is handicapped by a lack of seat time or money more than anything else than skill. Whereas drifting is we still have a fairly small pool of exceedingly skilled drivers, and that's only going to get bigger and bigger now because I get so many messages from people these days saying from 18, 19-year-old kids and stuff. I'm sure that a lot of the FD drivers get this sort of thing too. It's like, oh man, I love your YouTube videos. You got me into cars. Like they say, I got them into cars.
Yep.
And they're just they're getting hyped on this stuff, and they're gonna want to continue on and do what we're doing. So it's only gonna get better. So I'm going a bit of rant there.
That is good, and I think Corey, you hop in right after me. But I think it's important that someone as notable in the scene as you and we have said on the show multiple times is the haters out there. I hate to just call them haters, but I mean the idea that drifting is dying or drifting is getting worse or that Formula Drift is ruined or D1 is ruined or in this case that FIA has ruined drifting is bullshit because you're right, it is getting bigger. There's more notoriety for the sport than ever, and as long as people are dedicated to advancing the cause, it's going to be great. And also I just wanted to say that despite what we've discussed for the past few hours, I'm worried that it might be perceived that me and my co-hosts and maybe even to some extent Ryan, and not so much you, Alexi, but still, it might be perceived that we are shitting on this because we want it to fail, and by no means is that true. Hopefully you guys didn't think that. It's simply because we want it to be the best thing in the world, and we know that it can be with the proper direction and the proper path, and we want to see it succeed, which is why we are critical.
Those were my words, almost verbatim, to the nice people at the FIA.
Yeah.
What was?
Go
ahead, Paco.
I have a question from Shadow Moses. He's asking, what do you guys think of Federico Sherifo's Ferrari 599 drift car? Whoa.
I love it, and I hope he makes it next year.
Yes. Have you seen it, Alexi?
I mean, I've seen it. I've met Federico many times.
Nice.
I've helped him out sometimes when he came over here. If you ever get the chance, ask Federico to pronounce the names of Italian car manufacturers, because it's like honey in your ear the way he pronounces, Ferrari, Lamborghini. That sounds so good.
Questo posto è mio piacere.
Paco, what would you announce? Buick. Chevy Avalanche.
La Reata.
Pontiac Azteca.
Biblio Azteca.
Well, we confirmed via the Instagrams that we're going to have him on the show before the 2018 season, which he has claimed that he will show up at. So it's very exciting that he has said he'll make it next year, and we will talk to him in the off season for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Federico, he's a really funny guy. He's got a lot of he's sort of got that typical Italian thing where he'll be extremely serious one second and very like pissed off for the second, another second, and he's very that sort of fiery Italian. So I think Federico definitely adds a lot to drifting as a sport, and especially when he comes over here, like everyone's like Fede, like everybody likes Fede in Japan. So. I think he adds a lot to the sport, and bringing a Ferrari, I mean, geez, that's going to be pretty cool.
His new nickname is going to be the Fiery Stallion.
Buongiorno.
Was that Brad Pitt?
Yeah, maybe one or two more questions. This is what I'm going to kind of refine down from Yamaha 465 for Lanteigne, I imagine. Was there anything from this event that you'd actually like to take into Formula Drift?
No.
Tokyo.
Yeah.
No, bang, bang.
What about some of the drivers? Would you like to see? Who would you like to see?
I talked to Arkady, and I asked him if he's coming because he's phenomenal. The fact that he was able to do what he did against Kawabata in that car that Kawabata has, phenomenal. I think he's definitely got the timing down right. He's got the skill, the talent, the balls, everything he needs to do well. You can tell that his car was just like a little bit slower maybe than something like the R35 was, but he's definitely got the right mentality to make it in FD, I think.
Well, that was one of the funniest interviews is the commentator on the ground put the mic in his car and is asked him, like, so how was that run? He's like, I don't know. I just closed my eyes and I'm looking for the podium. And I was like, and I'm just like, dude, you couldn't have said anything any better than that.
He's the Russian Jeff Jones.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm just going to put the supercharger on the podium. Yeah, no, but that was one of the moments that I took away from that whole event is just that interview where it's like so raw. He's like, I don't know. I'm just driving my eyes closed. I'm aiming for the podium.
Yeah, overall, I think the Russians took the event, like not with victories, but like
it goes back to what Brian said. It's all about that emotional connection and the spirit of the sport, and those two dudes brought it more than anybody.
Do they have any plans to make an appearance in Formula Drift? You know,
Gocha was there last year.
Told me that Gocha tried this season one round, but he wasn't in his own car, and I think that probably hurt him. Arkady said he's trying, but it's a budgetary issue, of course.
Yeah. Well, if James Dean has proven anything, that a youngin with skill that is new to our league can still kick everyone's ass. Hopefully that inspires some more European assholes to come beat up all of our American buns.
Well, I'm all for the motherland coming and taking over.
Yeah. Arkady won the second day, so you can tell that he's got his shit together. He's able to perform when he needs to.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean,
you guys have any?
No, I think we're wrapped up with that.
We tapped out. Corey's head turned into a hot dog from thinking so hard on the score.
Well, this is my thinking cap. So I had to put my thinking cap on during this whole episode.
Which I'm sure you'll see in the thumbnail of the episode. But if you are doing the audio only portion, you're missing out on Corey's hot dog hat, which is actually quite normal for Corey to be flanked by buns. But
always have a weenie and buns on my head, Sam.
Yeah, usually have weenie and buns in proximity to your face most times. So,
Well, Alexi and Ryan.
Anything you guys want to ask before we let you go back into your days or nights?
Before you do, I just want to say thank you guys for coming on.
Yeah.
And
what a diverse crowd we have here. I know we're on opposite ends of the earth. And we thank you guys to be ambassadors to this sport and filling us in the real facts on the FIA event.
Look,
Ryan is muted, it looks like.
The end.
I have one question left, and it's just been sticking with me through the conversation.
Okay, here we go.
Ryan Lanteigne first mentioned
Okay,
it,
here we go.
Maybe I misunderstood, but
All
I
right.
just want to have this cleared up in my mind. Maybe other people got the same confuses. Anyways,
All right.
question: just to go back to what FIA was establishing as the tire rules, correct me if I'm wrong, but whatever tires were allowed from whatever drifting sanction that those drivers came from, those are the tires they're allowed to use. Now, these are semi-slick tires that D1 is allowing the drivers to use. Could drivers from a different sanction be okay to use those tires, even though the drifting section they came from didn't allow them?
That is an excellent question. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think anybody that did have the opportunity, I don't think they took it, if that was one. The FD guys ran their tires from FD. Their actual competition tire, the same one that they would use in the series. And I mean, we had a lot of drivers. I think it was only maybe 5 drivers were running on our comps, 5 or 6 drivers out of the whole series. So, or out of the whole, yeah.
Performance difference though in the tires, and
Huge.
Now that it's piecing together to me from watching these 2 events, why there is such a dramatic difference between the different drivers. You can see they are working the cars as hard as they can, and then all of a sudden you just see other cars looking like they're driving like in a video game. It's just like this unrealistic grip.
Yeah, and I asked a couple of the FD drivers, and they said, look, we're driving at the absolute edge, the absolute limit of what our tires can give us in terms of grip and traction. So they were doing the best they could. They were probably running ridiculously low tire pressures because, as you saw, there was no D-bead rule. So the risk was probably worth the reward in that sense,
right.
Of running like 5 PSI or whatever. I don't know what they were running, but probably pretty low.
Thanks.
Wow, nice job, Big Balls.
But yeah, it was definitely pretty crazy. I mean, I would imagine drivers who are used to their tire wouldn't risk, going with a different tire just like to experiment. But I mean, maybe it seemed like, for example, like Matt Field's car it seemed slow to me. Maybe he could have taken advantage of the grippy tire. Who knows?
It could, yeah.
Well, his engine blew up. Did you hear what happened to him? His engine blew up in practice before the event, so he ended up putting a stock 2J in there.
What?
And the engine blew up on pre-practice, like before they even came to Odaiba, and it was a stroked motor, I think. Maybe it had pistons and rods and things like that in it, and then that thing blew up. He got a stock 2J from Daigo. That thing probably has been beat to within an inch of its life multiple times in the past, and then they put a bunch of go fast stuff on the outside of it, but stock internal. So he was definitely at a disadvantage. They had to tune the car on the track, he told me, that day. Yeah, the first practice session.
Well, there you go. That answers your question, Yako.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy. So, okay, so going back to thanking you guys for joining us. Anything you guys want to add to this conversation before we let you go on your days?
No, just thanks for having us on, to give us the opportunity to actually give you the inside scoop.
Oh, yeah, we appreciate it. And Ryan, I'm sure we're going to have you on hopefully shortly after the FD season to decompress all of that one more time. And Noriyaro, we always love having you on the show, and we never get to talk enough about all the cool shit you do in Japan. So once again, soon we're going to have you on, just hopefully discuss all the cool happenings and culture around Japanese life.
Yeah, well, I think we can dedicate maybe an episode to that sort of thing, because there's definitely a lot to talk about. But thanks for having it. Thanks for very much having us on again. A lot to talk about from that weekend. Obviously, it was good having Ryan Lanteigne on here to talk about all that and get, because I mean, I was just sitting out there. I don't know if I showed anyone on the live stream, but I was literally sitting
not wearing pants. Yeah, that's so crazy that the whole time.
No, you showed up one day wearing a hoodie and the next day a sombrero.
That's actually. Well, the reason for that was because they wanted to put us out like where people could see us for some reason. I have no idea why. We were up on a little platform, and we had a table and the monitor which had all the scores come up on it and stuff like that, and a little broadcast monitor so I could see what was going out to the live stream. And I brought my microphone. So I was me. Next to me was Kawasaki, the guy doing the Japanese live stream for Nico Doga. He's the guy who is the editor of Drift Ningoku magazine, or former editor. And then next to that was, I don't know what. I think it was they were recording it for the official TV show. This is a reason why you probably can't find any official replays of it, is because it's an FIA show, so it's going to be it's licensed to be shown on TV. That's probably why they haven't done the official show yet. They had Keiichi Tsuchiya and some other people there too doing commentary as well. And then another table with, I couldn't even see it. It was like some random people, I don't know what. So I was sitting out in the direct sunlight from 10:30 in the morning until the event ended at 5 with a quick half-hour break between that. So for the first day, I was like, somebody mentioned I look like I was sitting there like this. I looked like... who did they say? Look like Eminem in 8 Mile, sort of about to drop a beat, sort of covering all my face up like that. And for the second day, I brought a straw hat from Australia, which is actually from a hardware chain called Bunnings. It's like the Bunnings hat. It's like a $5 hat that everybody uses that. So I brought that with me. And I will, full disclosure on the set, it's like, well, you weren't wearing your headphones. It's because I was literally just wearing them for show because I thought I'd be able to hear like somebody talking to me or something like that, but I couldn't. I was just wearing them because it just looked cool.
Looked
so
official.
That's
we do that half the time on the show too. That's exactly what we're doing now. Also, we're going to talk about this. A long time ago, we talked about us doing some sort of T-shirt sale or something to get you out to the States. We're still going to do that. We're going to come up with an idea and get you out to the States. If you're cool with that.
Look, one of these bash events, I think, would be the way to go.
Well, All-Star Bash is coming up.
Well, we also have a local event here in Phoenix that we will talk about in a little bit after let you guys go. But we have an event.
Are they
December.
paying us, Paco?
Yes.
Are they?
Yeah.
How much? Well, are we rich? Nice.
We're rich now.
Finally, Rockstar Energy money.
Anyway, so final thing for me, I had a lot of fun doing the live stream. So thanks to everyone who watched that, and I did my best with the information I had. That was I did what I could, and a lot of the chat in the Facebook was quite interesting. We had Matt Field's mum in there, I think, giving her opinion. We also had another, I won't mention names, but a former well-known person in the U.S. drift scene. I think he might have been drinking and making some comments.
I'll say his name too, Alex Pfeiffer.
Okay.
Dude, I was reading his comments. I'm like, this guy right here.
He was having some fun.
Oh, yeah. He tried ripping me a few times. That's why I'm saying his name, because he tried ripping me in the chat. And I was like, bruh, I'll go toe-to-toe with you at this.
You said his name. But anyway, and just a lot of other people's comments. Like, I was trying to read the comments and if the same sort of questions came up, I was trying to answer them. But, we're all working at this together to make it better. If you want to actually see me know what I'm talking about, next weekend is D1 Grand Prix at the same venue, and it's actually Ryan Lanteigne. It's actually a different layout they're using. It's with the straight approach.
Yes, of course. Yeah. We assume that. Yeah.
Yeah. So different, similar like loop back on itself layout, but with the maybe third gear entry this time. So that'll be live this weekend, Saturday and Sunday as well. If anyone wants to watch more drifting from a diver. And, of course, we'll be back with Formula Drift Japan from Okayama later on at the end of this month. So there's lots more live stream. Of course, Ryan will be out for that, and I'm assuming I'm going to have Ryan Sage doing the commentary with me as well this week for that event. So that should be a lot of fun.
Awesome.
So, that's all from me.
All right, dudes. Well, thanks again. We'll send you guys off to start your day or night, depending on where you're from. But thank you guys.
Lantaigne's going to a rub and tug.
Yeah, he's going to go to a meat massage parlor.
I don't know what I'm going to do right now. It's midnight for me, but what is it? What time is it there? 1 a.m., Alexi? Or 1 p.m., I mean?
It's 1 in the afternoon. I'm just going to go and have some lunch. Yeah.
Nice. Get ready for his bodybuilding competition.
1 p.m. right now, but I'm supposed to go to bed, so I'm going to figure that out.
Nice.
It's called ZQL. Enjoy it.
All right, guys.
All right, boys.
We'll talk to you guys soon.
Later.
Hope to see you in Irwindale, everybody.
We'll see. We'll be there. We're going to talk about it right when you guys leave.
Awesome.
Later.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night.
Bye, Alexi.
And good day. Good morning.
Bye.
Konnichiwa. One of the things that Alexi needs to remember when he sets up his green screen is not to wear his hat with the green bill. It looks so cool.
He's wearing a little skull cap. I love it.
Yep.
Wow, that was awesome.
Yeah,
very enlightening.
Obviously, there was
very
a lot
informative.
There was a lot of things that we could just like kept going and going and going, but obviously, we can just go crazy.
I've got to be a dickhead and tell him to change subject because once we've hit an hour and a half of talking about the judging system, we got to get to other stuff, unfortunately. But there is so much that goes into that, and you can't get into it all in the short amount of time we try to present the show in.
Yeah. But before we go, something real quick. So we're going to have this event here in Phoenix. It's called Desert Meihan. For people who don't know, Meihan Sportsland is this track where they drift in Japan. Cool. It's a go-kart track, but it's very common, very popular for drifting. And that's that track that has that very long concrete wall where all the guys do those
the infamous team burst videos.
Yeah, and they put the water bottles on the wall and they just go flying with the wings. So there's gonna be a 1-on-1 replica of that track here in Phoenix at the Bondurant, with including that concrete wall and everything. It's gonna be pretty badass. We have a bunch of confirmed guest drivers. One of them is Fred Lumlump in his Y33 Infinity Q45 drift car. Pretty well-known driver from Low Style Heroes from California. He's gonna be here. We're gonna have Dan Brockett is gonna be revealing his new. I mean, his car is already he's got a V8 now, but he's gonna be revealing new body kit, new livery, and he's gonna be doing that here. But also, we wanted to do the official invitation for Sam Nalvin, Drift Idiot, to come and debut his newly powered Forsberg build, SR20 powered Forsberg build.
When is it?
Is it December the 9th here in Phoenix?
I could maybe do that. I need to go and fix my car real quick, but
yeah.
I also don't know what I'm doing in that regard because I'm not good at working on cars if I haven't been clear about that previously. But,
well, my suggestion is that you grab that little young guy that lives there, Dylan.
The dozer is busy as fuck.
Oh well,
building.
Get him busier and get him to bring your car in his car.
To be fair, the car just had like a minor boost leak at the end of Drift Garage. I just need to fix that. The bumper is also kind of hanging off in an uncomfortable way. Kind of got to fix that. But I mean, honestly, if I could just drive it once and then drive it into a wall, kind of like what Corey should have done in Texas.
Oh, you'd be out. You could hang out the rest of the year, Sam. Not do anything.
That's what I'm saying. Is that if I just ruin the car, no one will ever ask me to make another drifting video again. So that'd be sweet.
And then you're stuck with us forever.
Yeah. Well, I could try to make that happen, man.
Come hang out. Bring your car. It'll be like the view of the Drift Idiot videos back in Arizona. You know, you can make what's the number? The Drift Idiot video day what?
I'm on like 16ish.
Yeah, you can make day 17.
Also, my phone doesn't want to allow me to do Drift Mayhan on the 9th, so it's just called Drift Megan.
Drift Megan.
That'll work.
And obviously, also Corey, you are invited to come and slide.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
hopefully, I was actually just texting Keith at American Motorsports right now as we were coming up with a game plan because we're in a transitional period with what we're doing with the boss.
Well,
so
let's see if there's something we can get done.
Yeah.
You know.
So Corey, you are getting the surgery?
Yep, I'm gonna remove it and then re-add it as a finger.
But anyways, it's gonna be a great event. It's capped at only 50 drivers, so it's gonna be a lot of seat time, and there's gonna be there's still more drivers, more guest drivers to be confirmed. So check out Desert Mayhem. We'll put a link on Instagram. And
you say Mayhem?
Actually, we
that's a rock festival.
Just call it that. Desert Mayhem.
No, is that what you're saying, or is it like a Mayhem, like a Japanese?
Mayhem.
How do you spell that?
It's actually a Spanish event, Sam. It's Majan.
That's like Mija. Desert Mija.
Desert Mija.
Hell yeah.
So we'll post more information about it, and let's move on with Corey. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think these boys have stuck with us this whole episode. It was awesome. You know, I'm super pumped that we got all the information we did. Remember the FD raffle for charity.
Yeah, we'll post links for all that.
We'll take care of that. Also, the AM intakes. They've been a huge supporter. Been with us for almost a year now.
Thanks
the whole
a lot,
season.
AM.
McLeod, obviously they came on midway through. McLeod clutches.
If it wasn't because of them, you couldn't have if it wasn't because of McLeod clutches, you couldn't have blown your engine.
Yep. If I didn't get the throwout bearing and all that sweet stuff. Strong. So the clutches and throwout bearings are way too powerful. But do you know what? This is like, guys, we're coming up to the end of the season.
Yeah.
Like this is
like we got to do something big
nuts.
next week. I don't know what we can do or what we need to do, but we gotta do something to just really maybe like a full season recap and talk about it with someone. But yeah, it's a big deal. I can't believe it. Maybe
we could have an event with no guest and just talk to each other.
Paco was thinking about taking out the Dolphin to Irwindale, which is Paco's RV that he has.
Oh yeah,
it's got a V10, Corey. Don't laugh.
So we might have a Dolphin party in Irwindale. But no, man, this is it. We're coming up to the final end of the year. We'll hopefully we'll have some merchandise. Hopefully we'll be able to get Alexi out here.
We'll figure something out, bro. Hashtag
but also
free Alexi.
Have we brought up on the show already? I'm sorry I wasn't here the past few weeks, but have we brought up the fact that we're doing a halftime show again at Irwindale?
Are we?
Oh, at the AM booth?
Oh yeah.
Oh, we haven't
got
brought
it.
that up. No. So that's
Sorry.
a good point. Thanks, Sam. Thanks. Even though you've been gone, you're still on it. That's why we keep you around, Sam.
Shut the fuck up.
So you guys, we'll be doing a halftime show at the AM booth. It's right outside the main grandstands. We'll be debuting a sweet new ride for a driver. We'll be doing a bunch of raffles, a bunch of giveaways. We'll have a bunch of product on display. It's going to be hopefully as big as last year, if not bigger. It was a good time. Live Q&A, autographs. It's going to be freaking cool. It's usually the largest at Irwindale, so hopefully we'll see you guys there. Outside of that, you can find Paco at 2F Performance and Tofu Drift Fan.
Hold on.
You can find Sam at eatadick.net. What, Sam? Sorry.
I was gonna say also don't forget to check out our Patreon if you have made it this far in this episode. We applaud you. But also, if even every one of you guys did like 50 cents on Patreon, Corey could finally get the surgery he's been wanting, and Paco could finally buy his 13th car.
Yep.
So we appreciate any amount you guys do on there. There are bonus incentives for people that do certain amounts. But if you want to support the show, the smallest amount is still better than nothing, and we appreciate it. And beyond that, I wanted to point out my vintage tee that my friend Sarah.
Oh, you got
it. Antique Sugar. Oh yeah. It says, for those that are in the audio only version, it says, "Bad boys drive Nissan toys."
Oh my God!
And
You have
the-
to
Stand up.
you have
and
to
the
stand
O.
up and show it.
And the O in the toys is a Nissan logo.
Let's see it.
Damn.
Oh, that thing is gorgeous, Sam. It just shows off your traps and your pectorals and your asha like so perfectly.
And it's blue. It's just
Look
like
at
his
those
favorite
guns.
shirt.
Sam, you have a really nice thyroid, dude.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm gonna cut out the
Thyroid.
nipples on this thing for Irwindale. Let everyone know what I'm about. I think.
Bad boys drive Nissan toys.
Nice. That's a cool
Oh
one.
yeah, babies.
God, you're the perfect candidate for that shirt.
Yeah, so I got that, and I think that's probably the right tone to end the episode with.
Yep, I agree.
You know, guys, we haven't sang our way out in quite a long
Okay.
time. Can we?
All right.
Let's sing the old-fashioned FIA episode goodbye song.
Oh yeah, did you get
the
that from
classic
John
one?
Todd, the FIA song from John Todd?
Yeah. No, he actually sang this to Noriyaro and Ryan in both their ears right before they left Japan.
Because
Or Noriyaro's still there,
that's
but
the
you know.
initiation to be a judge or part of the team. You
Yeah,
have to go
so-
through this singing. Gotcha.
So I'll start it up if you guys join in. It starts with like
It's
drift.
Drift.
You ready?
Oh, yeah.
Drifting is the best sport. And we want to thank you for watching.
Watching.